We all know that finding peace isn't easy. Even on quiet nights, our minds can run wild, replaying worries, regrets, or random thoughts that come out of nowhere. Some people feel calm one minute and overwhelmed the next, as if their heart is stuck on fast forward. But what if peace wasn't something to chase, but something to learn? In today's video, come and learn as the Buddha shows the path to peace. We'll explore simple wisdom that gently settles the mind. So let's not waste any time and let's begin. The quiet settles around you like a soft blanket, and the world of this sleep story opens fully. The lantern glow along the path warms the air, and each step feels slower, calmer, as if the earth itself wants you to rest. The night is gentle here, no sharp edges, no rush, just the kind of stillness your heart has been craving for far too long. You walk forward, feeling the ground steady beneath your feet, until the silhouette beneath the Bodhi tree becomes clear. The Buddha sits in perfect ease, not stiff or distant, but relaxed in a way that makes your own shoulders loosen. His presence feels familiar, as though you've met before, not in memory, but in the deeper place where recognition lives. The air around him seems softer, quieter, as if the world leans in respectfully. When he lifts his gaze to yours, there's no sense of being judged, only welcome, only understanding. He rises slowly, each movement smooth and intentional, like a leaf drifting on water. "You've walked a long way," he says, voice warm and steady. "Even if your feet have not traveled far, your mind has." And something inside you agrees instantly. You feel seen in a way that doesn't require explanation. The Buddha doesn't ask what's worrying you or what keeps you awake at night. He simply knows. In that quiet way, wisdom knows everything without needing details. You stand before him, breathing a little easier. He gestures gently toward the path ahead, inviting you to walk with him. The two of you step into the night, and the moment your foot touches the ground beside his, the world feels different, lighter somehow, as though the air has shifted to match the pace of your breath. The forest around you is calm. Cicadas hum softly in the distance, and leaves sway in a rhythm slow enough to encourage your body to follow. The Buddha walks without hurry, his robes brushing the cool air. "Most travelers rush," he says quietly. "They chase peace as if it is running from them. But peace does not run, it waits." His words drift into you like warm tea, settling, soothing, making space inside your chest. You listen carefully, but there's no pressure to respond. Being here is enough. Beside him, your steps begin to match his pace, steady, unforced, patient. You notice the texture of the earth under your soles and the softness of night air drifting across your skin. Little by little, your awareness widens, and the Buddha nods gently, as if he can see that shift taking place. He leads you to a spot where the trees part just enough to reveal a narrow stream of moonlight. The forest feels alive with quiet energy, but not the overwhelming kind. This is the type of calm that makes your breath slow all on its own. The Buddha stops and turns to face you with a peaceful smile. "The path begins," he says, "not with effort, but with noticing." Your attention dips inward naturally. You realize how much noise you've been carrying. Tight thoughts, old worries, unspoken fears. Here, their edges soften. Here, they feel less powerful. You exhale without meaning to, and it feels like releasing a weight you've held for days. The Buddha watches you gently, then takes a slow breath of his own. This journey is not about forcing the mind to be quiet, he explains. It is about remembering that the mind was born quiet. Stillness is not something to create, but something to return to. His words settle like petals falling into a still pool. You continue walking together, and he tells small, simple stories, ones that make you smile without trying. He talks of travelers who looked for peace in faraway places only to find it waiting at their own doorstep. He speaks of storms that seem endless until they break open to reveal clear skies. Each story nudges your mind into a gentler rhythm, each one dissolving a little more of the tension buried inside you. Soon, the path opens into a clearing where fireflies drift in lazy circles above the grass. Their glow flickers softly, like distant stars, practicing how to shine. The Buddha pauses here, taking in the simple beauty of the moment. Awareness begins this way, he says. Not with force, not with struggle, but with paying attention to what is already peaceful. You breathe in slowly, letting the quiet around you soak into your body. The Buddha's presence feels like an anchor, steady and reassuring. For a moment, you forget the noise of your day, the weight of your responsibilities, the list of things you meant to do. There is only this clearing, this gentle night, and this opportunity to rest. He looks toward a narrow path that leads deeper into the forest, where the sound of flowing water whispers in the distance. Come, he says softly. Now that your steps have slowed, it is time to understand the breath that guides them. And with that, the journey moves forward into the next part of the night, toward the gentle truth waiting in chapter 2. The soft sound of flowing water grows clearer with every step as you and the Buddha make your way along the dimly lit forest path. The night feels calmer now, as if it knows you've settled a little, as if it's waiting for you to listen more deeply. The Buddha walks with an ease that makes everything around him seem lighter. His presence alone slows your heartbeat, guiding you gently toward the sound ahead, steady, rhythmic, almost like breath itself. You soon arrive at a small clearing where moonlight spills across a quiet stream. The water glides over smooth stones without effort, without rush, simply moving because that's its nature. The Buddha kneels beside the stream and rests his hand lightly on his thigh, inviting you to sit with him. You lower yourself onto the cool earth, feeling the subtle give of the ground beneath you. Night air brushes past your skin, crisp but comforting, and the hum of nighttime insects fades into the background. Listen, the Buddha says softly, not to him but to the stream. At first, it seems like ordinary water, but the longer you listen, the more you hear in it. The rise and fall, the ocean-like rhythm, the quiet cycles of movement. Breathing is the same, he continues. Everyone does it, but few truly hear it. You focus on your own inhale. It enters gently, not sharp or rushed, filling your chest and expanding your ribs in a slow, natural stretch. Then the exhale comes, softer than you expect, leaving your body like a long-held thought, finally released. The Buddha nods without you needing to say a word. Good. Again. So you breathe once more. This time, You notice how the air cools your nose on the way in and warms slightly on the way out. In, out. The Buddha matches your rhythm, slow and unhurried. When the mind is restless, he says, the breath becomes tight. When the mind softens, the breath follows. Let it soften. You inhale again, deeper now, and feel the breath reach places in your chest you haven't felt in a long while. Spaces that had collapsed under stress or worry. The exhale slides out, carrying more than air. It carries the remnants of tension your body had tucked away without permission. The Buddha watches the stream, not your face, giving you space to experience this moment without feeling observed. Many believe peace begins with controlling thoughts, he says, voice steady as moonlight on water. But peace begins with something simpler. The breath is your first companion on the path. Always with you, always steady, always honest. You breathe again, and for a moment, the world shrinks down to that simple cycle. Breath in, breath out. Your shoulders drop a little. Your jaw loosens. Your chest expands easier. The Buddha's presence strengthens this calm, not by doing anything, but by being a reminder that stillness is possible. He dips his fingertips into the cool stream and lifts a small handful of water. It slips between his fingers effortlessly. The breath does not need to be controlled, he says, only noticed. It will teach you everything if you let it. You watch the water fall back into the stream, merging again with the flow. Even the strongest current is made of many gentle drops. You close your eyes. Instantly, your other senses awaken. The coolness of the night, the scent of damp earth, the quiet murmur of the stream, the slow rise and fall of your chest. The Buddha continues speaking, his voice blending seamlessly with the sound of water. When you inhale, you receive the world. When you exhale, you return it. This is balance. This is harmony. This is the beginning of peace. A breeze drifts across the clearing, and somewhere above, the leaves rustle softly. The Buddha lifts his gaze toward the canopy. Breathing teaches presence, he says, and presence opens the door to awareness. Without awareness, the mind becomes like a river in a storm, muddy, fast, and impossible to see through. You breathe again, feeling how each inhale creates space inside your chest, how each exhale empties it gently. The Buddha rises slowly and gestures for you to stand beside him. You do. Together you walk toward a narrow trail that winds along the stream, the moonlight guiding your steps. Your breathing continues naturally now, each inhale sinking with a step forward, each exhale grounding your next. The Buddha glances at the stream and then at you. Just as water carries reflections, he says, the mind carries thoughts. To understand the mind, you must see how it moves, how it shifts, how it becomes clear, and then troubled, and then clear again. Up ahead, the stream widens into a shimmering riverbank, its surface smooth as glass beneath the pale glow of night. The Buddha slows, allowing you to take in the scene. Now that your breath has steadied, he says gently, we can walk deeper. The river will show you what the mind truly is. The river widens before you, opening into a smooth, quiet expanse that reflects the moon with perfect clarity. The night air feels cooler here, brushing your skin like a gentle reminder to stay present. The Buddha steps toward the bank, and without a word, sits on a flat stone shaped by years of flowing water. He gestures for you to join him, and when you do, the sound of the river fills the space between you. Soft, steady, patient. For a moment, neither of you speaks. The world doesn't rush here. The river moves at its own pace, and somehow your mind begins to follow. You watch the water slip over stones, forming tiny ripples that grow, expand, then fade into smoothness once more. The Buddha finally breaks the silence in a voice that carries the same rhythm as the stream. Thoughts, he says, move like this. They appear, change the surface, then vanish when left alone. You follow the path of a small ripple drifting outward from where a leaf has landed on the surface. It widens, softens, and eventually disappears into the stillness. Most suffering, the Buddha continues, does not come from the ripple. It comes from chasing after it. You feel the weight of that truth settle gently, not as a burden, but as recognition. How often had you followed a single thought until it grew into a storm? The Buddha picks up a small pebble and holds it out on his palm. Watch. He drops it into the river. Rings spread from the point. Contact. Clear, perfect circles, expanding into the night. The mind reacts, he says. A sound, a memory, a fear, a hope. Each one touches the surface. You notice how the rings continue outward, but weaken with time. But when you do not cling, he lets the thought end naturally, allowing the water to finish the lesson for him. You inhale slowly, letting the coolness fill your lungs. When you exhale, your mind feels a little more like the river, open, spacious, undisturbed. The Buddha turns slightly toward you. Be the watcher, he says, not the ripples. Watch the arising, watch the fading. Nothing needs to be held. A dragonfly skims across the surface, barely touching it, before lifting away again. The Buddha smiles softly. The mind prefers movement. It jumps, it spins, it wanders. But beneath the movement, there is always stillness waiting. You let your gaze sink beneath the surface of the river. Even though you cannot see the depths clearly, you sense their quiet, their steadiness, their peace. You begin to feel your own thoughts floating by. Loose memories, scattered worries, tiny ideas. They drift like leaves on the water, rising and falling with small currents. But instead of grabbing them, you simply watch. The Buddha nods approvingly. You see, they move on their own. They change shape. They fade. This is their nature. A breeze sweeps across the clearing, carrying the scent of wet earth and distant blossoms. The moonlight trembles on the surface of the water, turning the river into a silver path stretching into the darkness. You feel lighter, quieter, as if your mind has been rinsed clean. The Buddha stands slowly, the folds of his robe catching the moon's glow. When the waters of the mind become still, he says, clarity appears. Not forced, not demanded, simply allowed. He takes a few steps upstream, and you rise to follow him. The ground beneath your feet is soft, the earth cool after hours of night air. As you walk, the Buddha continues speaking. Stillness does not erase suffering. It reveals it, and what is seen clearly can finally be understood. You pause at a bend in the river where the current slows, becoming almost mirror-like. The Buddha stops as well and glances at the reflection of both of you. In this reflection, he says, there is no past, no future, only what is here now. And when you learn to see yourself this way, without stories clinging around you, then the roots of your suffering become visible. A faint rustling rises from deeper within the forest, not threatening, just alive. Branches shifting, leaves brushing together, animals moving softly through the undergrowth. The Buddha looks toward the trees, then back at you. Come, he says, now that your mind has tasted stillness, it is ready to understand what disturbs it. He steps away from the riverbank, the moonlight outlining his figure against the shadows of the forest. You take one last look at the calm water, smooth, quiet, endlessly patient, before turning to follow him. The path ahead narrows, winding between tall trees whose branches lean protectively overhead. Your breath is steady now, your mind softer. The stillness learned beside the water stays with you as you walk deeper into the forest, ready to uncover the truths the Buddha is about to share. The forest gathers around you as you follow the Buddha deeper between the tall, silent trees. The river's calmness lingers inside you, but the air here feels different, denser, almost expectant. Moonlight filters through the leaves in soft, broken patterns, lighting pieces of the path while leaving others in gentle shadow. It feels like walking through the quiet of your own mind, moving slowly towards something long avoided, but finally ready to be seen. The Buddha walks ahead with an unhurried grace. Even when the ground becomes uneven, his steps remain steady, as if he is familiar with every root and stone. When he stops beneath an ancient tree with wide, sheltering branches, he turns to face you. His expression is calm, but there is a seriousness in his eyes. Not harsh, just honest, like someone about to share a truth that matters deeply. He waits until the forest settles, until even the breeze grows faint. Then he speaks. All beings, he begins softly, experience suffering. The word doesn't land like a heavy stone. Instead, it feels strangely relieving, as though someone has finally spoken aloud what you've spent years carrying silently. He continues, suffering takes many forms. It is the ache in the heart when something is lost. It is the fear of what might happen. It is the longing for what is not here. You think of the restless nights you've had, the tightness in your chest, the thoughts that run in circles, the moments where nothing felt quite right, even when everything seemed fine. The Buddha's voice holds them all without judgment. In life, he says, there is pain, there is disappointment, there is change, and even joy, when held too tightly, becomes a source of suffering. His words are gentle, but they illuminate things you've felt many times without understanding. He steps closer to the old tree and touches its bark lightly. Suffering, he says, is like the roughness of this trunk. It is not wrong. It is simply part of what is. He turns back to you. The mistake is not in feeling it. The mistake is believing that suffering means something is broken within you. Those words settle into you more deeply than the others. You let them echo there, loosening something you didn't realize had become tight. The Buddha sits beside the tree, folding his legs comfortably. He gestures for you to sit as well. The earth is cool beneath you, grounding and steady. Above, the branches sway slightly, whispering through the leaves. When you suffer, he continues, your mind tries to escape. It resists. It pushes away. It clings to anything that promises relief. But this resistance turns suffering into a wound that cannot heal. He traces a small circle in the dirt. Awareness does not remove suffering. It softens it. It allows you to see clearly what is happening without being crushed by it. You close your eyes for a moment, listening to the quiet. You can feel the truth in his words. Not dramatic, not mystical, but simple in a way that feels impossible to deny. You open your eyes again, and the Buddha is watching you with an expression of quiet understanding. Think of suffering, he says, like a knot. Awareness is the hand that loosens it, gently, patiently, without force. He picks up a fallen leaf, turning it over slowly in his fingers. Most suffering begins when the mind believes things should be different from what they are. This belief creates tension, and that tension creates pain. He lets the leaf drop and watches it fall softly to the ground. But when you see reality clearly, without the stories built around it, the tension begins to dissolve. You feel as though he is describing the way your own thoughts have tangled themselves over the years. Expectations you couldn't meet, memories you couldn't change, worries that felt heavier because you tried so hard not to feel them. For the first time, you sense the possibility that these knots can be undone. The Buddha rises slowly, his robes brushing the forest floor. You stand with him. The night feels different now, not lighter exactly, but clearer, as if a small lantern has been lit inside your chest. Suffering is the beginning, he says gently. To understand it is the first step toward freedom. But now you must learn what gives rise to it. He looks toward a narrow trail leading between two towering trees, where the darkness gathers like a veil waiting to be lifted. Come, he says, you have seen the existence of suffering. Now you will learn what feeds it. With your mind a little clearer and your heart a little steadier, you follow him deeper into the forest, ready to uncover the roots that shape your pain as the journey opens into Chapter 5. The forest deepens around you as you step onto the narrow trail the Buddha has chosen. The earth soft beneath your feet, the air carrying the quiet pulse of night. The trees grow closer together here, their roots twisting across the ground like old stories woven into the soil. You sense that this part of the path is different, heavier somehow, charged with a quiet truth that has waited a long time to be understood. The Buddha walks ahead with calm certainty, stopping near a cluster of ancient trees whose roots coil upward like spiraling ropes. He places a gentle hand on one of them, and the bark seems to hum under his touch. Here, he says softly, is where we begin to see the roots beneath suffering. You step closer, noticing how the roots twist and wind around each other, some thin as threads, others thick and stubborn. The Buddha kneels beside them. Craving, he explains, grows in the mind the way these roots grow in the earth, slowly, quietly, wrapping around everything until we cannot tell where one desire ends and another begins. You crouch beside him, tracing the patterns of the roots with your eyes. They seem endless, running deep into the soil. Craving is the wish for things to be different from what they are, the Buddha continues. It is the longing for pleasure to stay, for pain to disappear, for life to follow our plans instead of its own rhythm. He lifts a small root that winds tightly around a larger one. Some cravings are subtle, he says. The desire for approval, the wish to be seen, the need to feel in control. The small root tightens where it wraps, showing its grip. Others are fierce, he adds. Cravings that burn like fire, obsession, addiction, desperation. His voice remains gentle, never blaming. Both kinds bind the heart. You feel the weight of those words, not as judgment, but as recognition. Memories of wanting too much, clinging too hard, trying to bend your life into shapes it would not take. The Buddha seems to sense this shift in you. He smiles softly, brushing soil from his fingers. Craving is not a flaw, he says. It is simply a movement of the mind, a habit learned through fear, through hope, through the desire to escape or to hold on. The forest around you grows quieter, as if listening. The moonlight filters through the branches, casting pale silver across the tangled roots. But cravings, the Buddha continues, grow because we feed them. By pushing away what we dislike and gripping tightly what we want. He reaches for a vine coiling up a nearby trunk. With a gentle tug, he loosens it. The vine falls easily, surprisingly so. Craving seems strong, he says, but often it is held in place only because we do not see it clearly. You watch the vine unwind from the tree, dropping softly to the forest floor. Something loosens inside you too. The Buddha rises and begins walking slowly forward, the forest path opening again as if following his calm. You follow close behind, noticing how the air feels lighter with each step. When craving is not understood, he says, suffering grows like a forest left untended. But when craving is seen, recognized, named, it loses its power. Ahead, the trees thin, revealing patches of soft grass illuminated by moonlight. The Buddha pauses, turning to you. You see, he says, it is not desire itself that brings suffering. It is the tightening around it, the insistence, the clinging. A breeze stirs the leaves above. The Buddha lifts his face slightly, eyes half closed, as though listening to something distant. Imagine holding water in your hands, he says. When you squeeze, it escapes. When you relax, it rests easily. You breathe that in. It feels true in a way your body understands before your mind does. The Buddha steps fully into the clearing. The grass is soft beneath your feet, and the sky opens above you, wider than before. This place, he says, is where we begin to practice seeing craving without fear, without running toward it or away from it. He motions to the sky. Look at the stars, he says. They shine without clinging to their light. They burn without grasping at the darkness. They simply exist as they are. You look up. The stars shimmer gently, each one steady, each one separate yet part of the same vast expanse. Something in your chest softens. For the first time, you sense that your cravings, your fears, your wants, your restless reaching might not be chains after all. They might simply be signals, misunderstandings, old patterns ready to be seen clearly. The Buddha watches you with a knowing calm. When craving is understood, he says, letting go becomes natural, not forced, not painful, simply natural. He turns toward another path leading out of the clearing, this one lined with fallen leaves that glow faintly under the moon. "Come," he says with a gentle smile. "You have seen the roots. Now it is time to learn how to release them." The path covered in leaves glows faintly under the moonlight as you follow the Buddha onward. Each step sends a soft rustle through the fallen foliage, a whisper of movement that feels gentle rather than disruptive. The night air is cool and easy, wrapping around you with the steady comfort of a quiet breath. Ahead, the Buddha slows, his steps becoming even softer, until finally he stops beneath a tree whose branches stretch wide like open arms. Leaves drift down from its crown, slow, unhurried, weightless. Some fall straight, others spiral in lazy circles before settling on the earth. The Buddha watches them with a serenity that feels contagious. "Letting go," he says quietly, "looks like this." You stand beside him, your attention drawn to the falling leaves. They move without struggle, releasing the branches without effort or resistance. So many believe that letting go requires force, the Buddha continues. They think it means tearing themselves away from what they love or pushing away what they fear. He shakes his head gently. But letting go is not a battle. It is a soft opening of the hand. He kneels and picks up a crisp leaf that has just touched the ground. The edges are curled, the color shifting from gold to deep brown. "This leaf lived many seasons," he says. "It did not fall because it was rejected. It fell because its time had come. And when that moment arrived, it released itself willingly." You can't help but think of the things you've held on to, the plans that didn't go the way you hoped, the people who drifted out of your life, the fears you kept tucked away just to feel prepared. The Buddha seems to read the reflection in your eyes. Holding on is often the mind's attempt to stay safe, he says, but what we cling to most tightly is often what we need to release. He places the leaf gently back on the ground and stands with slow, deliberate ease. Letting go begins with noticing your grip, he says, not shaming it, not fighting it, simply noticing it. He brings his hands together, palms facing inward, then slowly opens them, letting the air pass between his fingers. This is all that is required at first, just a softening. You mimic the motion, opening your hands. Something subtle shifts inside you. Not a dramatic release, not a sudden burst of clarity, just a small loosening you didn't know you needed. The Buddha nods with quiet approval. The heart knows when it is ready, he says. Letting go cannot be rushed, but it can be invited. A breeze stirs through the trees, sending another wave of leaves drifting downward. The Buddha begins walking again, guiding you through the gentle rain of falling colors. Each leaf's descent feels like a reminder of things that have ended, of chapters you've closed, of expectations you've quietly carried for years. And yet, watching them fall brings no pain, only softness. Consider, the Buddha says, how the tree does not mourn each leaf that falls. It trusts the cycle. It trusts that release makes room for new beginnings. You breathe that in, letting it settle in the quiet spaces of your chest. Trust, release, renewal. Words that feel both comforting and brave at the same time. You walk with him until the trees begin to thin, giving way to a small open field, bathed in moonlight. The grass sways gently, each blade moving independently, yet in harmony with the wind. Letting go gives you space, the Buddha says. Space to breathe, space to heal, space to understand what you truly need. He pauses, turning toward you with soft eyes, and it gives space for freedom to enter. Freedom. The word drifts through you like an exhale. You feel it not as a distant dream, but as something close, something possible. Imagine, the Buddha continues, a bird clutching a branch so tightly that its wings cannot open. In holding on, it forgets it can fly. His gaze lifts to the sky, where a lone night bird arcs silently across the moonlit expanse. But when the bird remembers to release its grip, the sky becomes its home. You follow the bird's path until it disappears into the darkness. The Buddha's voice returns in a softer tone. Letting go is not the end, he says. It is the beginning of freedom. And once you taste freedom, you will understand why release is an act of compassion toward yourself. He steps forward into the field, his robe whispering against the grass. You walk beside him, feeling lighter, not because everything is solved, but because something inside you has more room to breathe. The Buddha looks toward a gentle slope rising at the edge of the field. The hill is quiet, glowing faintly beneath the stars. Now, he says, with your grip softened and your heart a little freer, you are ready to learn what freedom truly feels like. The gentle slope before you rises like a quiet promise, its surface painted with moonlight and the soft shimmer of dew. Each step feels lighter now, as if the simple act out of loosening your grip in the last chapter has changed the weight of the world resting on your shoulders. The Buddha walks beside you in calm silence, his presence steady and grounding. Even without words, he radiates a knowing warmth, an unspoken reassurance that you are exactly where you need to be. As you reach the crest of the hill, the landscape opens into a serene valley below. Mist drifts lazily above the grass, glowing faintly under the night sky. The valley feels untouched, timeless, like a place built for quiet discovery. The Buddha pauses at the top, taking in the view with a soft breath. This, he says gently, is where understanding begins. You follow his gaze across the valley floor, noticing how the terrain lies open and clear. No tangled roots, no heavy forest canopy, just open space. The Buddha lowers himself to sit on a smooth stone, and you do the same. Freedom, he begins, is not created by escaping your life. It is created by seeing your life clearly. His words float across the valley like a warm breeze. You let them settle inside you. He continues, when the mind is confused, even small problems feel heavy. But when the mind understands, even great challenges lose their power to crush. His tone is patient, never rushed. You look out over the valley again. It stretches far in every direction, a wide, breathing landscape. The Buddha gestures toward it. Clarity, he says, is like this open space. It removes the walls the mind builds around itself. He moves his hand slowly through the air, illustrating how confusion narrows perspective, while understanding opens it. You realize how many times you've misunderstood your own experiences, how often you blamed yourself when life shifted, or believed you were weak simply for struggling. The Buddha's voice softens. So much suffering comes from not seeing things as they are. When you understand the truth of your experience, you stop fighting shadows. The wind ruffles the grass at the valley's edge, creating soft ripples that mimic the waves you saw earlier on the river. You watch them move, gentle and unstoppable. The Buddha notices your attention and nods. Understanding is movement, he says, a shifting of perception, a widening of awareness. It allows the heart to rest. He picks up a small stone from the ground, turning it over in his palm. So often, he says, we carry interpretations instead of truths. We believe we were rejected when someone walked away. We believe we failed because something didn't unfold as expected. We believe we are not enough because others did not see our worth. He sets the stone down gently. But these are interpretations, stories the mind tells in confusion, not truths. You feel something loosen again, an old familiar tension unwinding quietly. The Buddha leans slightly toward you. When you understand that everything changes, that people act from their own wounds, that circumstances rise and fall like the tides, then freedom becomes possible. His eyes reflect the moonlight, warm and steady, not because the world is perfect, but because you stop carrying what was never yours. You take in a slow breath. The air smells of grass and cool stone. It feels easier to breathe in this valley, as if clarity has its own scent, its own texture. The Buddha rises to his feet and begins walking down toward the valley floor, and you follow. The grass bends softly beneath your steps, parting without resistance. As you walk, he speaks again. Right understanding is the foundation of all peace. Without it, the mind clings blindly. With it, the mind relaxes, opens, and sees the full picture. He turns his head slightly, giving you a small, encouraging smile. And when you see clearly, you stop suffering from illusions. The valley widens around you with each step, becoming more luminous. Fireflies drift through the air in gentle swirls, adding tiny sparks of golden light. The Buddha stops near a cluster of wildflowers swaying quietly in the breeze. Each flower grows in its own time, he says. None rush, none compare. They simply understand their nature. He touches one softly. When you understand your nature, your needs, your limits, your strengths, you free yourself from expectations that never belonged to you. You let this truth sink in deeply. It feels like a quiet exhale inside your soul. The Buddha looks toward the far end of the valley, where the land begins to slope upward again, forming another gentle rise. We climb next, he says, to see how insight grows from this understanding, where clarity meets illumination. You follow his gaze and see the faint outline of the next hill, bathed in starlight and waiting patiently. With the peaceful valley behind you and the promise of deeper wisdom ahead, you walk beside him toward the rising ground, entering Chapter 8, where the light of insight begins to dawn. The path leading upward feels gentle beneath your feet, the slope rising slowly as if giving you time to adjust to the shift ahead. The valley's openness lingers in your chest, making each breath feel wider, clearer, easier. The Buddha walks a few steps ahead, his robe brushing quietly against the grass, moving with the same calm intention that has guided you through the night. The air grows cooler as you climb, carrying a faint scent of stone and distant blossoms. You sense that something is waiting at the top, something subtle, yet deeply important. When you reach the hilltop, the world opens in a way that takes your breath for a moment. The horizon stretches wide. The sky is deep and endless, and the first hints of dawn shimmer faintly along the edge of the world. Though night still holds the land, the early light gathers patiently, as if preparing to reveal something hidden. The Buddha stands with his face turned toward that soft brightness, a faint smile touching his lips. Insight, he says quietly, arises as gently as morning. His voice is the same calm tone he has carried all night, but something about this moment gives it a deeper resonance. You cannot force the sun to rise. You cannot demand clarity. You allow it. You look toward the horizon, noticing how the darkness thins little by little, not all at once. Insight comes, he continues, when the mind stops resisting what is. When you observe without judging, without clinging, without trying to control. He gestures lightly toward the sky. Do you see how the light approaches? Soft, patient, not tearing the night apart, but merging with it. A faint band of pink touches the clouds. The shift is so subtle, you almost wonder if you imagined it, yet it grows, spreading like a quiet understanding across the sky. The Buddha sits on a flat stone, and you settle beside him. The cool air brushes your skin, carrying the promise of dawn. Those who seek insight often search with force, he says. They chase answers. They grasp for certainty. But insight is not found through effort. It appears when the mind becomes still enough to receive it. You listen carefully, letting the words settle inside you like the first light on the horizon. The Buddha continues, insight is the moment you see clearly what confusion once distorted. It is the moment the path ahead becomes visible, even if only for a few steps. He closes his eyes briefly. It is the moment the heart whispers, "Ah, now I understand." As the sky lightens, you feel something similar inside yourself. A subtle shift, a softening of the edges of thoughts you once held too tightly. The Buddha opens his eyes again, turning to you. Insight is not a flash of brilliance, he says. It is a gentle illumination, a quiet remembering of truths you already hold. You watch as the first golden thread of sunlight slips over the horizon, casting a warm glow across the hilltop. Everything it touches becomes clearer. The texture of the stone beneath you, the movement of air across the grass, the breath rising in your chest. Notice, the Buddha says, the light does not arrive with noise. It does not demand attention. It simply reveals. You realize that insight works the same way. It doesn't shout. It doesn't shake you awake. It appears softly when the mind finally stops crowding itself with noise. The Buddha watches the sunrise with reverence. Clarity is a gift, he says, but it requires space, and it requires honesty. A bird calls out from a nearby branch, its song clear and light. The Buddha's eyes follow it. Insight teaches you to act with understanding rather than habit. It teaches you to respond rather than react. He places a hand gently over his heart, and it shows you how to live with compassion, not just for others, but for yourself. The sunlight expands further, illuminating more of the landscape and warming the air around you. The world feels renewed under this growing light, as if everything has been gently wiped clean. This light, the Buddha says, is not the sun's alone. You carry it within you. When insight grows, it shines through your choices, your voice, your presence. You sit quietly, feeling the warmth settle into your chest. The Buddha rises, the light wrapping softly around him. Now that you've seen how insight appears, he says, you are ready to learn how it shapes the way you move through the world. He turns toward a path that slopes gently downward on the other side of the hill, leading into a peaceful expanse where faint rooftops and quiet pathways suggest the presence of a small village. Understanding must be lived, he says. It must guide how you speak, how you act, how you meet others on the path. With the sunlight growing stronger behind you, you rise to follow him down the hill, stepping toward Chapter 9, where the heart of compassion begins to take shape. The path into the small village is warmed by the first rays of dawn, the sky shifting from pale gold to soft blue as the Buddha leads you gently forward. The rooftops catch the early light, glowing faintly, as if the entire community is waking with the same calm breath you've been learning to cultivate. Smoke rises from a few chimneys, curling lazily upward. The world feels simple here, grounded, peaceful. As you walk beside the Buddha, you sense that this place is not just a village. It is a living lesson waiting to unfold. As you approach the first home, a woman opens her door and steps outside with a basket of freshly baked bread. Her face shows the tiredness of early work. Yet when she spots the Buddha, her expression softens into quiet relief. She bows gently. The Buddha returns the gesture with the same warmth he has shown you all night. Without words, he takes a piece of bread from the basket and breaks it in two, offering one half back to her. The woman smiles, exhausted but grateful. You watch the exchange, struck by its simplicity. Nothing extravagant, nothing dramatic. Just a moment of kindness freely given and freely returned. The Buddha turns to you. Compassion, he says softly, is not grand or loud. It is the small act of seeing someone clearly, beyond roles, beyond appearances, beyond expectations, and choosing kindness. As he continues walking, villagers begin stepping out of their homes. Some carry baskets. Some sweep their thresholds. Some sit quietly sipping morning tea. Each one pauses to greet the Buddha with warmth that feels genuine and effortless. What amazes you is how he meets every person with equal tenderness, whether they smile brightly or look weary, whether they are old or young, whether they seem at ease or burdened. A small child approaches shyly, clutching a carved wooden toy with one wheel missing. He holds it out awkwardly, eyes downcast. The Buddha kneels gently to meet him at eye level. "Your toy is hurt?" he asks. The child nods, lip trembling. The Buddha examines the toy, then smiles. Even small things deserve care. He opens his palm toward the child. "Show me how it rolls now." The child pushes the toy. It wobbles unevenly, circling awkwardly on the ground. The Buddha nods as if observing something important. When something is broken, he says to the child, we help it, not judge it. He picks up the toy and hands it back with a softened expression. And when we help gently, our hearts become lighter. The child's face brightens as he hugs the toy to his chest. You notice how the Buddha's presence has eased not just the child's worry, but yours as well. Compassion seems to ripple outward naturally, like warmth spreading through cool air. As you walk deeper into the village, the Buddha speaks quietly. Compassion is not a feeling, he says. It is a practice, a way of moving through the world. He gestures toward the people around you. Each person here carries joys and sorrows you cannot see, but kindness does not require knowing their stories. It requires only the willingness to be present. You feel the truth of that in your bones. So many times, you've assumed you needed to understand everything before offering care. But here, watching the Buddha, you see how compassion flows naturally from simple awareness and gentle intention. He leads you toward a small courtyard where a group of villagers gather, sharing food, laughter, and conversation. The Buddha sits among them without hesitation, his presence quiet but bright. He listens as they speak, truly listens, eyes attentive, posture open, no rushing, no distraction. You realize that compassion also lives in the way he gives his attention, unbroken and sincere. One villager begins to share a story about her aging parents, her voice trembling softly. The Buddha places a hand over his heart and listens without interrupting. When she finishes, he doesn't offer advice or solutions. He simply says, "May your heart find strength as their hearts find peace." The woman closes her eyes briefly, and when she opens them again, the heaviness in them has softened. After some time, the Buddha rises and begins walking toward the edge of the village. You follow, feeling the calm he leaves behind in every step. Compassion, he says once more as you leave the final row of homes, is the understanding that all beings seek comfort, seek safety, seek happiness, just as you do. The sun has risen fully now, casting warm light over the path ahead. The Buddha's shadow stretches long across the ground, and with compassion in your steps, he adds, your voice becomes softer, your words gentler. You begin to speak in ways that soothe instead of harm. The road leaves the village behind, leading toward a grove of trees where soft lanterns hang, swaying lightly in the morning breeze. A faint glow remains in them, remnants of the night's warmth. The Buddha glances at them, then at you. Now, he says, you are ready to learn how words can heal or wound, and how to speak in a way that brings peace. The lanterns swaying gently in the morning breeze cast soft circles of light across the path as you follow the Buddha into the quiet grove. The warmth from the village still lingers in your chest. The kindness you witnessed, the gentle exchanges, the simple human closeness. Now, as the grove embraces you with cool shadows and filtered sunlight, there is a different kind of quiet here. Not the hush of sleep, but the hush of reflection. The Buddha stops in the center of the grove, where the ground is worn smooth from years of footsteps. He turns to you with a serene expression. Compassion begins in the heart, he says softly, but it reaches others through speech. His voice carries the steady rhythm of morning itself, unhurried, clear, grounded. Words, he continues, are how we touch the world. You breathe in the scent of early dew and warm bark. Birds flutter overhead, greeting the new day with scattered notes of song. The Buddha kneels beside a fallen leaf, lifting it between his fingers. Just as a leaf can drift gently or fall heavily, so can your words, he says. They can soothe, they can sharpen, they can heal, they can harm. You think of moments in your own life, times when words spilled out before you truly meant them, or when silence filled a place where kindness should have been. The Buddha studies your expression briefly, then offers a soft smile. Do not judge yourself, he says. We all speak from habit until we learn to speak from awareness. He rises and begins walking slowly along the grove's winding path, inviting you to walk with him. Skillful speech, he says, is anchored in 4 qualities: truth, kindness, necessity, and clarity. He pauses beside a tree whose roots twist like ancient fingers in the earth. Truth, he begins, touching the bark lightly, does not wound when delivered with compassion. It becomes a bridge, not a blade. You remember times when truth was spoken harshly to you, and how it made your heart fold inward. Then you remember gentle truths, the ones that helped you grow, even when they were difficult to hear. The Buddha continues walking. Kindness shapes the tone, he says. It softens the sharp edges of truth. Without kindness, truth becomes a weapon. With kindness, it becomes a balm. His voice makes it impossible to misunderstand. He is not telling you to avoid honesty. He is teaching you the art of delivering it gently. As you weave between the trees, he adds, before speaking, ask yourself, is this necessary? So many words are spoken simply to fill silence, to ease discomfort, or to escape loneliness. But silence is not an enemy, it is space. He stops by a small pond tucked into the grove, its surface perfectly still. When speech is not needed, he says, silence becomes the higher compassion. You sit beside the pond with him, watching a dragonfly skim across the surface. The Buddha's reflection ripples gently, yet even in the distortions, you see a peaceful steadiness. Clarity, he says, is the final piece. Speech must not only be kind and true, it must be clear. Confusion arises when we wrap our truth in vague words or speak from places we have not yet understood within ourselves. You feel those words inside you. How often had confusion spread simply because you didn't yet know what you were truly feeling? The Buddha seems to sense this. Speak only when your heart has settled, he says, and your words will carry the calm you feel. A breeze touches the pond, stirring the reflection. You watch the ripples expand outward. Every word, the Buddha says quietly, creates a ripple. You do not control how far it travels or how it will land, but you can choose how it begins. He gestures toward the trees behind you. A pair of travelers walks into the grove, one speaking anxiously, waving his arms, the other listening with a weary expression. The Buddha steps aside, observing them with gentle attention. As they pass, he turns to you. Do you see? One speaks from fear, the other from fatigue. Neither speaks from awareness. Their words cannot bring peace until their minds find it first. You watch the travelers fade into the distance, and the Buddha continues. Skillful speech is not about restraint. It is about intention. He looks at you with warm eyes. When your intention is to heal, your words naturally become gentle. When your intention is to understand, your words naturally become patient. The grove grows brighter as the sun climbs higher. The Buddha begins walking again, leading you toward a path that exits the grove and curves toward another part of the village. In every step, he says, you have the opportunity to speak in ways that bring harmony, not harm. In every breath, you can choose your tone, your truth, your intention. The village rooftops peek between the trees as you near the path's end. The Buddha glances at them. Now we will see how mindfulness touches not just speech, but the way we live our everyday lives. With the grove behind you and the warmth of morning ahead, you walk beside him into Chapter 11, where mindful living begins to unfold. The sunlight filters gently through the trees as you and the Buddha leave the quiet grove behind. The warmth of the morning settles around you, soft and steady, as the path leads you back toward the village you visited earlier. From a distance, you can already hear the subtle rhythms of daily life beginning. Footsteps on stone, the clink of wooden cups, the soft murmur of voices waking to a new day. The Buddha walks at an easy pace, each step deliberate, as if he is teaching with movement before he teaches with words. As you enter the heart of the village, the world feels different than before. You're not simply observing the villagers now, you're noticing them. The way a man sweeping his doorstep pauses every few strokes to breathe. The way a woman kneading dough pours calm into the rhythm of her hands. The way a young boy pours water into a pot with full attention, not rushing, not distracted. These gestures are small, but the more you watch, the more you feel something settle inside you. A realization that peace is woven into ordinary moments, not separate from them. The Buddha pauses near a stall where an elderly man is arranging vegetables into neat rows. His hands move slowly, with care rather than speed. The Buddha watches him with a serene expression. Mindfulness, he says softly, is not limited to meditation. It is in your actions, your breath, your attention. Every step, every movement can carry awareness. You watch the man place a final vegetable on the stack, adjusting it lightly so the row feels complete. The Buddha continues, when you are fully present, even simple tasks become sacred. Sweeping a floor becomes an act of clarity. Preparing food becomes an act of gratitude. Walking becomes an act of peace. You feel these words settle into your chest. You've often rushed through daily tasks, seeing them as obstacles between you and the important parts of your day. But here, watching the villagers, you see how these simple moments can be the very place where peace begins. A young girl, carrying a bundle of firewood, stumbles as one stick slips from her grasp. Before you can move, the Buddha is already there, steadying her gently. He picks up the fallen stick and places it back into her arms with a kind smile. When the mind is present, he says to you, as the girl hurries off, kindness arises naturally. Mindfulness does not separate you from the world. It connects you more deeply to it. You continue walking with him through the village square. A potter shapes clay at his wheel, his fingers steady, his breath calm. A woman tends a small herb garden, touching each plant as though greeting an old friend. A group of children chase one another in circles, their laughter rising like music. Everywhere you look, life unfolds, not with haste, but with quiet purpose. The Buddha gestures gently toward these scenes. Most suffering comes from living in the past or future, he says, but life can only be lived now. When you give your full attention to this moment, you free yourself from what is no longer here and from what has not yet arrived. You walk beside him as he approaches a well in the center of the village. A man is drawing water, the rope creaking rhythmically as he lifts the bucket. His movements are unhurried, his posture relaxed. The Buddha watches with a soft smile. Mindfulness transforms ordinary life into a path of peace, he says, not by changing what you do, but by changing how you do it. You breathe deeply, the scent of fresh water and warm soil filling your lungs. You begin to understand. Mindfulness is not an escape from daily life. It is the deepest way of being alive within it. As the morning grows brighter, the Buddha leads you toward the village edge. The path beyond opens into a stretch of forest, sunlight shimmering through the leaves like scattered gold. You walk with him until the sounds of the village fade into the distance. The forest path feels familiar and new at the same time, like a continuation of the mindfulness you just witnessed. The Buddha stops and turns to you with gentle eyes. Mindfulness guides your actions, he says softly, but intention guides your heart. His tone deepens with meaning, inviting you to listen more closely. Without intention, even mindful actions can drift without purpose. But when intention is clear, each step becomes a step toward freedom. Ahead, the path narrows into a quiet corridor of trees, their branches forming a soft arch of shade. You sense that what comes next will take you deeper, not into the world around you, but into the inner landscape where intention shapes your choices and your life. With the lessons of the village still warm in your mind, you walk beside the Buddha into chapter 12, where the true power of intention begins to reveal itself. The path narrows beneath the arch of trees, their branches filtering sunlight into soft patches of gold and shadow. As you and the Buddha walk deeper into the forest, the world feels quieter, not silent, but attentive, as if each leaf and stone is waiting for what he will say next. Your steps slow on their own, guided by the calm steadiness of his pace. You sense that what you are about to learn is not another outward teaching, but something that lives much closer to the center of who you are. The Buddha pauses beside a cluster of ferns, their delicate fronds trembling gently in the morning breeze. Everything you do, he says softly, begins long before your actions. It begins with intention. His voice blends into the forest's quiet rhythm, grounding you instantly. The heart moves first, he continues. Thoughts follow. Actions follow. Experience follows. He presses his palm lightly against his chest. So if the heart is unclear, the path becomes unclear with it. You feel those words sink in deeper than you expect. You think back to choices you've made, some rushed, some driven by fear, some shaped by the desire to please others or avoid discomfort. The Buddha seems to sense the shift in your breath. Intention is the seed, he says. Without understanding the seed, we cannot understand the fruit. He begins walking again, leading you through a part of the forest where the ground becomes soft and springy beneath your feet. Moss carpets the earth in a thick green layer, cool and gentle. Intention is not the same as desire, he explains. Desire clings. Intention guides. His steps are light, almost soundless. Desire says, I want this. Intention says, I choose this. You repeat the distinction silently in your mind. It feels important, like a quiet doorway opening. The Buddha stops at a small clearing where the sunlight pours through the trees in shimmering beams. He asks you to stand still with him. Walk, he says gently, but walk with a purpose in your heart. You lift one foot, place it down, lift the other. The movement is slow, deliberate, strangely powerful. Something about walking with conscious intention makes each step feel meaningful. Notice, he says, how your steps feel when you choose them. You do. Your breath deepens. Your mind clears. There is a sense of movement without rush, progress without force. When intention guides you, the Buddha continues, your actions stop scattering. They align. You walk several more steps, feeling your awareness sharpen. The forest seems brighter, more vivid. Every sound, bird song, rustling leaves, distant wind, feels connected to your breath. When the mind wanders, the Buddha says, intention brings it back. When fear arises, intention steadies you. When doubt whispers, intention answers with clarity. He motions for you to sit with him on a fallen log. The bark is rough, but the seat is comfortable, rooted firmly in the earth. There are intentions that tighten the heart, he says, and intentions that free it. He lifts a small stone from the ground. When your actions arise from fear, the stone becomes heavy. He places the stone in your hand. It feels heavier than it should, symbolic weight pressing gently against your palm. But when your actions arise from wisdom, he continues, removing the stone from your grasp, the weight lifts. You exhale softly, noticing how even a simple gesture can illustrate something so deeply human. The Buddha looks up toward the canopy of trees, swaying faintly in the breeze. Intention shapes the way you speak, the way you act, the way you respond to life, he says. With clear intention, even difficult moments become opportunities for compassion. Without it, even easy moments create confusion. A sense of quiet empowerment fills you, like you're remembering something you've always known, but forgotten somewhere along the way. The Buddha stands again and gestures toward a break in the trees. Through the opening, you see the beginning of a mountain trail winding upward, steep and illuminated in patches by sunlight. This path, he says, is like intention. It rises, it challenges, it leads you upward. You look at the trail already, sensing the effort it will require. The climb, the breath, the steadying of the heart. Yet something inside you feels ready. Not because the climb will be easy, but because your intention has been set. You want to walk forward with awareness, with clarity, with purpose. The Buddha begins moving toward the trail. Now that you understand the power of intention, he says, you are ready to see how awareness grows when you follow it with each step. With a calm breath and a steady heart, you follow him toward the rising mountain path, entering chapter 13, where the climb of awareness begins. The mountain trail rises before you like a quiet invitation, its uneven stones catching the morning light as the Buddha begins his ascent. The forest behind you fades into soft rustling, replaced by the crisp clarity of higher air. Each step feels slightly more challenging than the last, not in a painful way, but in a way that demands presence. Attention to where your foot lands, to how your breath moves, to the shifting strength of your body. The Buddha climbs with steady ease, and you follow, feeling your awareness stretch with every upward movement. As the trail narrows, the view begins to open. Through breaks in the trees, you catch glimpses of the valley far below. The same valley where you learn to see clearly, where the first light of insight broke across the horizon. From this height, the world appears softer, more connected. The Buddha glances back at you with a gentle smile. Awareness, he says, rises like this mountain, slowly, steadily, one step at a time. You continue climbing, feeling your breath deepen to match the effort. The ground beneath you shifts from soft soil to firm stone, and each step becomes more deliberate. Many seek sudden awakening, the Buddha says as he walks. They want to leap to the summit, but awareness is not reached by leaping. It is reached by walking, by being present for every part of the path. A small rock rolls under your foot, and you pause to regain balance. The Buddha stops as well, his expression calm. Awareness catches you, he says, not by preventing missteps, but by helping you see them before they become falls. His words feel like a hand at your back, steadying, encouraging. You resume the climb. The air grows cooler, thinner. Birdsong echoes faintly from the treetops below, carried upward by the breeze. The Buddha lifts his face toward the wind. Awareness, he continues, is the practice of returning to breath, returning to body, returning to this moment again and again. You feel the truth of that with each step. Your mind drifts, the way minds do, but the climb calls it back. The firmness of stone underfoot, the rhythm of your breath, the rustle of the Buddha's robes, all of it draws your attention to the present. It becomes impossible to wander far. As you reach a small ledge, the Buddha stops and gestures for you to look out. The view is expansive, rolling hills, distant rivers, forests stretching endlessly. Mist floats over the lower valleys like a soft blanket. When awareness rises, he says, the world becomes clearer. Not because the world has changed, but because your perspective has. You take in the view, realizing how different everything looks from this height. Places that once felt overwhelming now appear small, understandable. Challenges that once felt tangled now seem like simple parts of a much larger landscape. The Buddha watches your expression, nodding gently. Awareness does not remove obstacles, he says. It shows you how to move among them without fear. He begins climbing again, and you follow. The path becomes steeper here, requiring more focus, more breath. But there is a quiet rhythm to it. Lift, step, breathe, steady. Lift, step, breathe, steady. Your mind falls into sync with your body, and for a while, there is no thinking, only moving. A fallen tree trunk blocks the trail ahead, its bark weathered and cracked. The Buddha steps over it smoothly. You take a moment, noticing how your body hesitates before finding balance. Awareness grows through challenges, he says, not by avoiding them, but by meeting them with presence. As you step over the trunk, you feel the deliberate movement of your muscles, the coordination of breath and balance. The Buddha gives a small, approving nod. When you bring awareness to difficulty, he says, difficulty becomes teacher. The trail curves toward the mountain's shoulder, where the incline softens and the ground widens into a flat terrace of stone. Here, the wind is stronger, brushing against your skin with a cool, refreshing touch. The Buddha stops at the edge and looks upward toward the final stretch of the climb, the steepest part, where the path becomes narrow and the rocks more uneven. Awareness prepares you, he says quietly, not just for the easy moments, but for the ones that test your patience. He steps toward the steeper ascent, his pace unbroken. And patience, he adds, is the next lesson. You look up at the rocky path ahead and feel the steady foundation inside you, the breath you've learned to follow, the intention you've learned to set, the clarity you've begun to cultivate. With each step, awareness has grown like the mountain beneath your feet. The final stretch of the climb rises steeply before you, carved by wind and time into uneven stone steps that demand both balance and intention. The Buddha moves upward with a calm that feels almost unreal. His steps slow, steady, almost unchanging, as though he is walking not on rock, but on still air. You follow, placing each foot consciously, feeling the effort build in your legs and the subtle burn begin beneath your skin. The air thins as you ascend, crisp and cool against your face, carrying with it a quiet that seems older than the mountain itself. When you finally reach the mountaintop, the world opens in a breathtaking sweep of sky and distance. The wind moves gently around you, not harsh, but soft and steady. Like a long, unbroken breath, the mountain has been holding for centuries. You stand beside the Buddha, the sky stretching endlessly above, the horizon curving in a calm blue arc around you. The Buddha gazes out with the same stillness he has carried through every step. Here, he says softly, is where patience becomes visible. You follow his gaze, watching the slow drift of clouds across the sky. Their movement is unhurried, natural. Most of what grows, the Buddha continues, grows slowly. His voice is touched by the wind, carried gently across the mountaintop. When you rush, you fight against the nature of things. But when you are patient, you learn to move with the rhythm of life instead of against it. You sit with him near the edge of the summit, where the rock is warm from sunlight. The landscape below looks peaceful. Valleys, rivers, forests stretching out like an unfolding tapestry. You feel the quiet of the heights settle into your bones. Patience, the Buddha says, is not waiting without feeling. It is the willingness to let things take the time they need. A small bird lands on a nearby stone, tilting its head as if examining you. It hops once, twice, and then takes flight again, wings beating with effortless grace. The Buddha watches it and smiles. Even the bird, he says, did not learn to fly in a day. It learned through falling, through trying, through gentle persistence. You think of the struggles you've experienced, the frustrations, the moments when life felt stuck or painfully slow. The Buddha seems to sense the direction of your thoughts. Impatience comes from the belief that you must be somewhere other than where you are, he says, but every moment is preparing you for the next. Nothing is wasted. The wind shifts, brushing across your face in a cool, refreshing sweep. You close your eyes for a moment, breathing it in. The Buddha continues, patience is not weakness, it is strength. The strength to endure without hardening, the strength to wait without resentment, the strength to trust in the unfolding of life. A memory surfaces, times when you pushed yourself too hard, demanded answers too quickly, or felt disappointment when things didn't move according to your timeline. The Buddha's voice softens. To be patient is to be kind to yourself, he says. It is to recognize that growth takes time. Healing takes time. Understanding takes time. You open your eyes again, and the view feels different, wider, calmer. The Buddha rises and walks slowly along the ridge, his robes lifting slightly with the wind. You follow him, your steps easy on the broad stone. The mountain, he says, teaches patience. You climbed it step by step. You did not rush, and yet you reached the top. He gestures toward the descent on the opposite side. Life is the same. The path downward is gentler than the climb, sloping, winding, illuminated by soft strips of sunlight filtering through high clouds. Patience guides the heart, the Buddha says as he begins the descent. Without it, the mind becomes restless. With it, the mind becomes peaceful, like still water reflecting the sky. As you walk downward, the sound of distant water begins to reach your ears. A gentle lapping, a soft whispering movement. The Buddha glances back at you with a serene expression. Below, he says, is a lake that mirrors the sky. There you will learn how patience prepares the mind for true reflection. You walk with him down the gradual path, feeling the rhythm of your steps settle into something natural and unforced. The wind softens as the path curves gently toward the valley. The sound of water grows clearer, like a calm voice calling you forward. The path curves gently toward the sound of water, each step carrying you closer to the soft, rhythmic whisper that's been echoing through the trees. The air cools as you walk, carrying the scent of damp earth and fresh leaves. Soon the trees part, opening into a quiet lakeside clearing where the surface lies still as polished glass. The sight takes your breath for a moment, not because it is grand, but because it is perfectly, impossibly calm. The Buddha steps forward, his presence blending into the serenity as naturally as moonlight blends with shadow. He stops at the water's edge, and you join him. The lake reflects the sky with such clarity that it feels like looking into another world, a world where everything is softened, where even the edges of clouds appear patient and willing to linger. This, the Buddha says quietly, is the mind when it rests. You stare at the reflection, noticing how every detail appears simply and honestly. The Buddha kneels, dipping his fingers lightly into the surface. Ripples expand outward from the point of contact, bending the reflection gently. And this, he continues, is the mind when disturbed. The ripples widen, stretching and softening the shapes on the surface. Still present, still whole, but harder to see clearly. You watch as the ripples fade slowly, the lake returning to its natural stillness. The transformation happens without effort, without force. It simply returns to calm. Awareness, the Buddha says, is not about eliminating disturbance. It is about allowing the mind to settle on its own, the way this lake settles when the movement ceases. You lower yourself to sit beside him, letting the view wash over your senses. A gentle breeze moves through your hair, carrying a feeling of openness with it. Look, he says, nodding toward your reflection on the surface. You lean forward slightly. Do you see yourself? Not as a thought, not as an idea, but simply as you are? Your reflection wavers with the slightest movement, the surface shifting as a dragonfly skims across it. Even with the distortions, you recognize yourself, not perfectly, but honestly. The Buddha speaks softly. Self-awareness begins with seeing, not judging, not fixing, simply seeing. He settles into a comfortable posture beside you. Many fear the reflection within, he continues. They worry about what they might find, but the mind, like water, shows only what is already there, nothing more, nothing less. You let your gaze rest on the lake again. The surface holds the sky like an open palm. Slowly, your reflections, yours and the Buddha's, become clearer as your breath steadies. When you learn to see yourself without fear, he says, the truth becomes a friend rather than something to avoid. A quiet peace pools inside you. You begin to notice things you hadn't paid attention to before. The gentle rise and fall of your breath, the subtle warmth in your chest, the softness behind your eyes. You begin to sense your own presence without tension. The Buddha lifts a small pebble and holds it loosely. When we cling to thoughts about who we should be, he says, we disturb the water, thinking we must reshape ourselves constantly. He drops the pebble gently into the lake. A soft ring of ripples spreads outward. But when we allow ourselves to simply be as we are, the mind clears, and the reflection becomes whole again. You watch the ripples fade. You feel something similar inside you begin to settle, an easing of expectations you've held on to, a loosening of old judgments that never truly served you. The Buddha observes your face with quiet kindness. Seeing yourself clearly is the first act of self-compassion, he says. The afternoon light shifts, warming the lake's surface with a soft, golden glow. Birds skim the water, catching tiny insects in smooth, effortless arcs. A frog croaks from somewhere along the shore, and lily pads drift lazily, nudged by the slightest currents. Everything here moves slowly, willingly. Nothing is forced. Notice, the Buddha says, how the lake reflects everything. Sky, trees, light, shadow, and yet remains unchanged in its nature. Self-awareness does not mean absorbing everything. It means witnessing everything without losing yourself. You breathe in deeply, letting the scent of the water and the earth settle into your senses. You feel as if you're seeing yourself, not from your eyes, but from a deeper place within. A place that is patient, forgiving, gentle. The Buddha rises, brushing earth from his robes. Now that you have seen yourself clearly, he says, you are ready for the next lesson. He looks toward the path behind you, where the sunlight spills gently across the ground. The mind learns to see itself, but the heart must learn to offer itself kindness. You rise to stand beside him, feeling the steadying presence of the lake behind you like a mirror, but will always be there when you need it. The forest path curves softly away from the lake, and the Buddha walks ahead with a quiet ease that matches the calm now resting in your chest. The air grows warmer as you move beneath the shelter of tall trees, their branches forming a gentle canopy overhead. Sunlight filters through the leaves in scattered beams, touching the ground with warm, golden patches. Each step feels lighter now, not because the journey has grown easier, but because something within you has begun to loosen, soften, open. The Buddha slows near a quiet meadow, where wildflowers sway in a mild breeze. The petals dance with a kind of freedom, unbothered by their own fragility. He sits on a smooth rock at the meadow's edge, inviting you to join him. You sit beside him, the grass brushing softly against your legs, the scent of earth and flowers mixing in the air. For so long, the Buddha says gently, You have looked outward, with kindness for others, understanding for others, patience for others. His gaze settles warmly on you. Now, it is time to turn that same tenderness inward. The words land softly, but deeply. You realize how often you've carried harshness toward yourself. Quiet judgments, old regrets, impossible expectations. The Buddha seems to sense this. Many treat their own hearts as if they are burdens to be managed, he says. They speak to themselves in tones they would never use with a friend. His voice lowers, warm as sunlight. But the heart does not grow under harshness. It grows under kindness. A gentle wind brushes your cheek, almost like a reassuring hand. The Buddha leans forward slightly, drawing a small circle in the soil with his fingertip. Imagine, he says, a seed planted in hard, unforgiving ground. It struggles, straining for life, but place the same seed in soft, nourished soil, and it grows with ease. He lifts his eyes to yours. Your heart is that seed. Compassion is the soil it needs. You feel a warmth begin to build behind your ribs, faint but unmistakable. He continues, self-compassion is not indulgence. It is not weakness. It is the recognition that you deserve the same care you so freely offer the world. A memory arises. Times when you blamed yourself for things you couldn't control. When you held on to mistakes long after others had forgotten. When you felt guilty for resting, for slowing down, for simply being human. You feel your breath catch slightly in your chest. The Buddha places a gentle hand over his heart. Forgive yourself, he says softly, not because you are unworthy of improvement, but because you are worthy of peace. The breeze shifts again, brushing through the wildflowers. A few petals drift loose, floating lazily through the air before settling onto the grass. The Buddha watches them fall. Everything changes, he says. Every moment, every emotion, every mistake. Clinging to what has passed only binds your heart. But letting go, letting yourself rest, brings healing. You lower your gaze, feeling something soften within you. It's as if the tight places inside your chest have begun to exhale. The Buddha speaks again, his voice like a warm blanket around your shoulders. When you stumble, he says, place a hand on your own heart. Whisper to yourself, it's all right, I am learning. These simple words can calm storms. He invites you to close your eyes. You do. Breathe in, he says softly, as though filling your heart with warmth. You inhale slowly, feeling the breath move into the space behind your sternum, expanding gently. And as you exhale, he continues, let the breath carry out anything heavy, guilt, shame, old stories that no longer serve you. You release the air, feeling a subtle lightness follow. Again and again, you breathe this way, filling yourself, softening yourself, offering space instead of pressure. When you open your eyes, the world feels warmer, as though compassion itself is sitting beside you. The Buddha smiles softly. A heart that is treated with kindness becomes strong, he says. Not hardened, but steady, not defensive, but open. You feel the truth of that settle fully within you. And when you learn to offer compassion to yourself, he adds, you will naturally offer deeper compassion to others. He rises slowly, motioning toward a path lined with small, delicate flowers that glow faintly in the sunlight. Come, he says gently. You have softened your own heart. Now, let us walk where compassion extends outward to every being, to every life, to every step. The narrow path lined with delicate flowers opens into a serene meadow where sunlight pours gently over the world, warm and golden. The Buddha walks ahead with slow, steady steps, and as you follow, you feel the softness of the earth beneath your feet, springy, alive, welcoming. The air carries the quiet hum of insects, the flutter of wings, the distant call of unseen birds. Everything here seems to breathe together, connected in a harmony you can feel but cannot quite name. The Buddha stops at the center of the meadow, where the grass bends in a soft circle, as if waiting for someone to sit and rest. He turns to you, his eyes warm with understanding. Now that you have learned to offer compassion to yourself, he says gently, you are ready to offer it outward, without limit, without boundary, without fear. You feel the truth of his words, like a gentle warmth radiating outward from your chest. He gestures to the grass around you, inviting you to sit. You lower yourself into the softness of the earth. The Buddha sits beside you, folding his legs with effortless ease. For a moment, the two of you simply breathe together, the rhythm slow and steady, as if syncing with the heartbeat of the meadow. Then he lifts his gaze to the horizon. Compassion, he says, is not an emotion. It is a way of seeing. His voice settles lightly over the clearing. When you look at others with compassion, you see not their actions alone, but the suffering beneath them. You see the fear behind anger, the longing beneath mistakes, the human heart beneath confusion. A breeze moves through the meadow, rustling the flowers gently. The Buddha watches them sway. All beings, he continues, wish to be happy. All beings wish to be free from suffering. Even those who act with unkindness do so because they do not understand their own pain. You take in a soft breath. Something inside you begins to expand, an awareness you hadn't touched before. The Buddha places a hand lightly on your shoulder. When you understand this, he says, your heart opens. You stop seeing enemies. You stop seeing strangers. You see beings walking through life with burdens just like yours. His words flow into the stillness of the meadow, touching everything quietly. You look around, noticing how the butterflies hover gently over blossoms, how the birds glide with ease overhead, how even the smallest ant seems to follow its path with purpose. For the first time, you sense the softness in all things, the fragility, the quiet longing for safety and ease. The Buddha has you close your eyes. Begin, he says softly, by imagining someone you care for. A face appears in your mind, warm, familiar. Offer them a simple wish. May you be safe. May you be peaceful. May you be free from suffering. The words in your mind feel like warm light pouring outward. The Buddha's voice remains beside you, steady and close. Feel your heart soften toward them. Feel your breath widen. Then he guides you further. Now imagine someone you know, but feel neutral toward, someone whose life rarely touches yours. Another face arises. You offer them the same wish. Strangely, it feels just as natural. Let your compassion widen, he says. Let it include them without resistance. You breathe gently, sensing your heart stretching beyond its usual shape. And now, the Buddha says with infinite softness, imagine someone you find difficult. Your breath catches. A shadow rises in your mind, someone who has hurt you, or someone whose presence stirs discomfort. The Buddha places his hand over his heart. This, he says quietly, is where compassion deepens. He guides your breath. See their suffering, see their confusion, see the wounds that shape their actions. Slowly, the tightness within you loosens. You whisper inwardly, may you be safe. May you be peaceful. May you be free from suffering. It feels strange at first, but then, slowly, it feels necessary. The Buddha smiles gently, as if sensing the shift. Compassion for all beings, he says, does not mean liking them. It means understanding that they, too, are walking through storms. A flock of birds rises suddenly from the trees, wings flashing against the bright morning sky, and the Buddha watches them with quiet wonder. When compassion expands beyond preference, he says, it becomes boundless. It becomes freedom. You sit for a moment longer, eyes open now, watching the meadow sway around you. Something feels different inside your chest, wider, warmer, as if the walls you once held around your heart have begun to dissolve. The Buddha rises slowly, and you follow, feeling lighter with every breath. He begins walking toward a small, shaded grove at the far edge of the meadow. Now that your compassion has opened outward, he says, you are ready to learn how to steady the heart when emotions rise, because compassion must be balanced if it is to endure. The grove at the edge of the meadow offers a comforting shade, its canopy woven from tall trees whose branches sway with the gentlest sighs of morning wind. The Buddha walks ahead, and you follow him into the cool embrace of the forest. The air here feels different, denser, calmer, almost like entering a sacred quiet that has existed long before your arrival. The sunlight filters through in the narrow, soft beams that touch the ground with a faint golden glow. Every sound, the creak of a tree limb, the chirp of hidden birds, the distant rustle of leaves, seems softened, as though the forest itself is trying to teach you something. The Buddha stops beside a moss-covered stone and sits, inviting you to rest nearby. You settle into the earth, feeling its coolness seep through you, grounding you instantly. For a long moment, the Buddha does not speak. He simply breathes and allows you to breathe with him. The quiet stretches, not uncomfortably, but in a way that encourages your own mind to settle. Finally, he opens his eyes fully and looks at you with a calm that seems endless. Compassion opens the heart, he says softly, but to hold compassion without being overwhelmed, the heart must also learn balance. His gaze drifts upward, following the movement of leaves that sway gently above. Every emotion is like weather, he continues. It passes through the sky of the mind. You look upward, imagining your thoughts as clouds drifting across a vast blue expanse. Some clouds soft and white, some dark and heavy, some scattered, some overwhelming. The Buddha sees your understanding deepen. Equanimity, he says, is the open sky that holds all of it without fear. A breeze sweeps through the grove, rustling the leaves in a slow wave. The Buddha gestures to the movement. When emotions rise, many try to push them away or cling to them. But balance comes when you allow them to move through you without losing yourself in their storms. He reaches down and draws a line in the dirt with his fingertip. Anger arises. You breathe. Sadness arises. You breathe. Joy arises. You breathe. This is balance, being steady even as the heart shifts. He wipes the line away with a soft sweep of his hand. No emotion is a problem, only our reaction to it. You let his words sink in. Memories rise. Moments when emotions pulled you in like strong tides. Moments when you felt swept away by fear or anger or sorrow. The Buddha's voice remains gentle. When a strong feeling appears, do not judge it. Do not chase it. Simply acknowledge it. I see you, you may say inwardly. You are here. Then breathe. He places a hand over his heart. This stops the mind from tightening around the feeling. A small bird hops near you, pecking at the ground without hurry, unbothered by your presence. The Buddha watches it fondly. Even the smallest creatures know balance, he says. They move with the rhythm of the moment, not with the storms in their minds. His eyes return to you. Balance does not mean indifference. It does not mean becoming cold. It means seeing clearly without letting the waves of emotion decide your actions. He lifts his hand and opens his palm. When you are balanced, compassion becomes deeper, clearer, wiser. The wind shifts again, and for a moment, the grove feels like a place between worlds, between movement and stillness, between breath and thought. The Buddha rises slowly and motions for you to follow him deeper along a narrow path. You walk side by side, listening to the faint trickle of water somewhere in the distance. Imagine, he says as you walk, that your mind is like a temple. When emotions enter, they are guests, not rulers. You picture that, a quiet temple with open doors. Feelings stepping in, staying briefly, then leaving. The Buddha smiles gently. Some guests stay longer, but none stay forever. Balance is trusting that. The trees begin to thin, revealing a structure emerging ahead, simple, wooden, elegant. A meditation hall rests at the top of a gentle rise, lanterns hanging from its eaves, still glowing faintly even in the daylight. The place radiates a stillness deeper than any you've felt, as though it has been waiting for this moment. The Buddha stops at the entrance. Now that your heart knows how to steady itself, he says quietly, you are ready to enter a deeper practice, one that will illuminate the nature of the mind itself. He steps toward the threshold, the wooden floor gleaming with soft light. You feel something shift inside you, a readiness, a calm curiosity, a steady courage you did not have before. With the grove behind you and the promise of understanding ahead, you follow him into chapter 19, where the stillness of meditation deepens into true insight. The wooden floor beneath your feet feels cool and grounding as you step into the meditation hall behind the Buddha. The air inside is different from the forest outside, still, unmoving, almost suspended, as though even time chose to slow itself here. Tall pillars rise like guardians along the edges of the hall, and candles, placed in shallow bowls, cast warm amber light across the space. The soft glow flickers gently against the walls, making the room feel alive with quiet breath. You pause just inside the threshold, letting the atmosphere settle into your senses. There is no clutter in the room, no distractions, only cushions arranged neatly in a circle, and a single statue of the Buddha at the front, its expression serene and timeless. The Buddha walks to the center of the hall and sits with graceful ease, inviting you to join him. You kneel onto a cushion, the fabric soft beneath your palms, and settle into a comfortable seated posture. For a long moment, there is only silence, deep, expansive, unbroken. The Buddha allows the stillness to settle around you, letting it seep into your bones. When he finally speaks, his voice is softer than it has been at any point on the journey. This place, he says, is where the mind learns to rest. You inhale slowly, the scent of candle wax and faint sandalwood touching your senses. Meditation, the Buddha continues, is not about emptying the mind. It is about sitting with the mind as it is, without force, without judgment. He closes his eyes gently. Stillness is not created, it is revealed. You follow his lead and close your own eyes. The darkness behind your eyelids feels calming, like a blanket drawn softly over the world. You hear the faint crackle of candle flames. You hear your breath, slow and steady. You hear the quiet hum of silence filling the hall. Begin, the Buddha says softly, by noticing your breath. You feel it enter through your nose, cool and gentle. You feel it leave through your lungs, warm and soft. Your breath becomes a small anchor in the stillness, a steady, dependable rhythm. Thoughts will arise, he says. Do not chase them, do not fear them. Let them drift like leaves across a calm pond. You do as he instructs. A thought emerges, a memory, a worry, a lingering question. But instead of following it, you watch it pass. It drifts. It fades. Stillness does not mean the absence of movement, the Buddha continues. It means the absence of disturbance. You take another slow breath, and something inside you relaxes. The tension you didn't realize you were holding begins to dissolve, like mist disappearing in morning sunlight. The hall seems to deepen into the quiet. The candles flicker with a steady rhythm. Your breath softens even more, settling into a natural pace. The Buddha's voice returns, barely above a whisper. When you sit with your mind in stillness, you begin to see it clearly. You see where thoughts come from. You see their patterns. You see the way they arise and fade. You feel your awareness widen, not outward, but inward. Each breath reveals a new layer of calm. Each moment feels softer than the last. Stillness, he says, is the open door to wisdom. Time seems to melt around you. The silence becomes a gentle companion rather than an absence. Even the floor beneath you feels more supportive, as though the entire hall is holding you in place, encouraging your stillness. The Buddha speaks again after what feels like several breaths, though you're no longer sure. Notice the space between each breath, he says. You shift your attention gently, noticing the inhale, the small pause, the exhale, the small pause. You discover a subtle quiet in those spaces, a quiet that feels deeper than silence. This, the Buddha says, is the doorway the wise enter through. A calm mind sees clearly. A restless mind sees only shadows. You sit with that truth, letting it echo inside you. The stillness around you grows almost luminous, like the hall itself is breathing with you. The candles glow brighter in your awareness. The air feels warmer, fuller, softer. After some time, the Buddha opens his eyes and looks at you with a serenity that seems to radiate from within. Now you understand, he says, that stillness is not a destination. It is a way of being. When the mind is steady, wisdom begins to awaken. He gestures gently toward the far end of the hall, where a small doorway leads deeper into the temple. Its frame is simple, carved with symbols of the Dharma wheel and lotus petals. Beyond that door, he says, lies the next step. Stillness prepares the ground. Wisdom grows from the seed. You rise slowly, feeling peaceful, grounded, and more aware of your inner quiet than ever before. With each step toward the doorway, the stillness follows you, soft as breath, deep, deep as the lake you left behind. And as you step with the Buddha into chapter 20, the deeper teachings of understanding begin to unfold. The doorway leads into a smaller chamber, dimly lit by a single lantern placed before a carved wooden altar. The air here is even stiller than in the meditation hall, as if the walls themselves have absorbed centuries of quiet. You and the Buddha step inside, and the moment the door closes behind you, a hushed depth surrounds you. It feels sacred, not because of ornate decoration, but because of the profound silence that fills every corner. The Buddha walks to the center of the room and sits with his back straight and his hands resting gently in his lap. You kneel beside him, your mind still softened by the stillness you found in the meditation hall. But here, the silence holds a different quality, deeper, older, almost as if it carries its own wisdom within it. This, the Buddha says softly, is the silence from which wisdom is born. His voice echoes slightly in the chamber, then dissolves back into quiet. You breathe slowly, taking in the weight of his words. Noise, he continues, distracts the mind, but silence reveals it. He closes his eyes, encouraging you to follow. You do. The absence of sound becomes its own experience. Your heartbeat, your breath, the faint settling of your body against the cushion. Everything becomes clearer, as if the silence has sharpened your senses instead of dulling them. When you listen deeply, the Buddha says, you begin to hear not with your ears, but with your awareness. His words float gently through the room. In silence, truth rises like dawn. You sit quietly, waiting, not for something dramatic, but simply allowing yourself to be here, without pushing or expecting. Thoughts appear in your mind, as they always do, but they seem softer now, less demanding. They drift through like birds crossing the sky, visible but not intrusive. This is where wisdom begins, the Buddha says, not in analysis, not in argument, but in quiet observation. Another long silence follows. At first, your mind tries to fill it with thoughts, questions, reflections, meanings. But slowly, the silence changes. It feels less like an empty space and more like a spaciousness inside you. A feeling of openness spreads gently through your chest, as though something has been unknotted. The Buddha's voice returns, low and warm. Clarity comes when the noise settles. Insight comes when the heart is calm. He opens his eyes and gestures lightly around the room. Silence is not nothingness. It is the home of understanding. You realize then that the stillness you feel is not simply around you, it is within you. It is a clarity that doesn't demand answers, a knowing that doesn't rely on words. The Buddha watches you with a soft smile, as if recognizing the shift. Wisdom, he says, is a quiet companion. It arrives gently when you stop chasing it. He stands and moves toward the narrow window, carved high in the wall. Dawn light has begun to slip through, thin at first, then steadily brightening, turning the wooden floor into a soft canvas of gold. He gestures for you to stand beside him. Look, he says. Outside, the first rays of morning stretch across the landscape. The sky blushes with soft pink and pale orange. The world is waking, but gently, still wrapped in the lingering calm of night. See how the light grows? The Buddha asks. Not suddenly, not forcefully, but naturally. This is how wisdom grows in a still mind. You feel it as he speaks, not as an idea, but as a quiet truth unfolding inside you. Wisdom is not something you chase. It is something you allow. The Buddha turns away from the window and leads you back toward the door. Now that your mind has learned to listen, he says, you are ready to understand the body as part of the path. For the body speaks as clearly as the mind, if you learn how to hear it. He opens the door, and the soft morning air drifts into the chamber, carrying the scent of dew and warm earth. You follow him out into the light, feeling a deeper calm than before, a calm that seems to settle not just in your thoughts, but in your entire being. The temple stairs lead downward toward a sunlit courtyard where a gentle breeze stirs the leaves of a Bodhi tree. The Buddha steps toward it, his robe moving lightly with the wind. Come, he says softly, your body has its own wisdom. Let us learn to listen. And with that, you walk with him into chapter 21, where mindfulness of the body begins to awaken a deeper understanding of presence. Morning sunlight spills across the courtyard as you and the Buddha step beneath the broad canopy of the ancient Bodhi tree. Its heart-shaped leaves shimmer softly in the breeze, each one catching the light with a gentle flutter that feels almost like a whisper. The air is warm now, holding the freshness of dawn and the first hints of day. You feel the stone beneath your feet, cool in some places, sun-kissed in others, and for a moment, you simply stand there, noticing the way your body receives the world. The Buddha begins to walk slowly through the garden bordering the courtyard. His steps are so soft, so deliberate, that you can almost sense the earth welcoming each one. The body, he says as you follow beside him, is the doorway through which you experience this life. To ignore it is to ignore half of your existence. His words flow easily, carried by the breeze. Treat the body as a temple, not a temple of perfection, but a temple of presence. You breathe in deeply, letting the warm scent of flowers and morning sun fill your lungs. The Buddha gently places his hand over his own chest. Begin here, he says softly. Feel the rise and fall. This movement has been with you since your first moment. It asks nothing of you. It simply gives life. You do as he says, tuning into your breath. The simple rhythm feels grounding, steady. When your mind runs, he says, your body remains. When your thoughts scatter, your breath stays. He guides you forward, encouraging you to notice every shift in weight as your feet move. Heel touching ground, then ball, then toes. Each step becomes its own small meditation. The The garden around you is vibrant with color: soft purples, deep greens, sunlit yellows. The Buddha pauses beside a cluster of lotus flowers blooming in a small pond. Their petals float effortlessly on the surface, neither resisting nor sinking. He gestures toward them. The body is like this lotus, he says. It rises from the mud of life, carrying both suffering and beauty. To care for it is to honor the path it carries you along. He leads you to a smooth stone bench near the water and invites you to sit. When you do, he begins guiding your attention inward with simple, gentle instructions. Notice your feet, he says, not the idea of them, the sensation of them, the way the ground supports their weight, the way the air touches the skin. You concentrate, and something subtle shifts. For the first time, your awareness fills the space of your feet, not your thoughts about them, but the actual feeling of them. The Buddha continues, move upward to your legs, your knees, your hips. His voice is calm and even. Feel how your body holds you, how it supports you, without asking anything in return. As you follow his guidance, you realize how often you move through life without ever truly inhabiting your own body, without ever noticing the quiet strength in your muscles or the gentle power in your breath. This body has carried you through joy, the Buddha says softly, through fear, through uncertainty, through growth. His gaze is kind, and yet, how often is it thanked? A warmth begins to fill you, not from the sun, but from within. A feeling of gratitude for the body you have lived in, even with its aches, its imperfections, its quiet resilience. Now, the Buddha says, bring awareness to your senses. He lifts his face toward the breeze, inhaling gently. See the colors around you. Hear the wind. Feel the air along your skin. Taste the breath in your mouth. Smell the earth and the flowers. You take in the garden with a new fullness, as though each sense completes a part of the world you had been missing. The senses, he says, are the windows of the temple. When you open them with awareness, you see the world clearly. When you close them in distraction, the world becomes dim. He rises, and you rise with him. Together, you walk along a narrow path of smooth stones winding deeper into the garden. The Buddha places a hand gently against the bark of a tree, inviting you to do the same. The texture surprises you. Cool, rough, alive. Presence in the body, he says, brings you into presence with everything. You walk a little farther until the garden opens into a soft clearing. Sunlight shimmering through the leaves in warm golden pools. The Buddha turns to you with a small, knowing smile. Now that your senses are awake, he says, you are ready to learn how they shape your perception, how sight, sound, taste, touch, and scent create the world you believe you inhabit. He gestures toward a path leading out of the garden, where a gentle wind carries the faint sound of running water. Come, he says, let us explore the senses more deeply, and with that, you step beside him into chapter 22, where the true nature of perception unfolds like light across the surface of the mind. The path leaving the garden leads you toward a gentle sound, soft, rhythmic, familiar in some instinctive way. The Buddha walks slowly, allowing you to take in the landscape as it shifts around you. Trees stretch tall overhead, their leaves whispering to one another. Sunlight filters through in warm ribbons. The air carries the faint scent of water, cool and pure. As you draw closer, the sound becomes clearer, a small stream flowing steadily over smooth stones. The Buddha stops beside it and gestures for you to listen. Truly listen. Not with effort, not with strain, just with presence. You stand quietly, allowing your ears to open the way your eyes do when first stepping into a bright morning. The stream's voice becomes layered, the bubbling splash of the ao, current against rocks, the gentle murmur of water weaving through reeds, the soft dip of a leaf landing on the surface and drifting away. The Buddha's expression softens, his gaze resting on the water as though it is offering a lesson of its own. Listening, he says gently, is the art of receiving the world without resistance. His words melt into the natural soundscape around you. You feel your breath settle, your body loosen. Most people do not listen, he continues. They wait for their turn to speak. They anticipate what comes next. They filter sounds through judgment, through expectation. But when you listen with awareness, every sound becomes a teacher. He encourages you to close your eyes. You do. At first, your mind reaches for what it hears, identifying, categorizing, labeling. Water, wind, leaves. But slowly, as your breath deepens, the sounds shift from separate pieces to a single flowing presence. The forest becomes a symphony made entirely of gentle notes. Notice, the Buddha says quietly, how the mind begins to settle when you stop demanding meaning from sound. The chatter of thought softens. A subtle spaciousness forms around your awareness, as though your mind has expanded beyond its usual borders. You hear the subtle creak of branches swaying overhead. You hear a bird call in the distance, a high, sweet tone that fades into silence. You hear your own breath blending into the rhythm of the forest. When you listen deeply, the Buddha continues, you discover that sound is not separate from silence. Each arises from the other. You open your eyes. The world seems brighter, more textured, the colors richer, the air clearer. The Buddha steps to the edge of the stream and kneels. He lifts a handful of water, letting it slip through his fingers. The droplets fall with a soft, pattering sound that seems impossibly delicate. This way, he says, is the sound of the present moment. It does not cling to the past. It does not reach for the future. He rises and begins walking again, guiding you deeper along the stream's edge. With each step, more sounds reveal themselves. The rustle of deer moving through tall grass, the soft crackle of twigs beneath your feet, the flutter of wings overhead. A sense of unity grows, as if each sound is connected to every other, forming a tapestry woven from breath and movement. Perception, the Buddha explains, is shaped by how you listen. When your mind is noisy, the world feels noisy. When your mind is quiet, the world reveals its gentleness. You absorb his words as naturally as you absorb the sounds around you. The forest no longer feels like a place you are passing through. It feels like a presence you are in harmony with. The Buddha slows his steps, allowing you to sense the shift inside you. He turns toward a fallen log near the water's edge and sits. You join him. Deep listening, he says, is not only for the world around you, it is also for the world within. He taps his chest lightly. Your thoughts, too, have a sound, a movement, a rhythm, but most never hear it because they are too busy reacting. You feel a calm anticipation rise within you. The Buddha continues, when you learn to listen inwardly with the same patience, the same gentleness, the same openness, you begin to understand your mind, not by force, simply by attention. The stream continues, its steady whisper, weaving around his words. Soon, he says softly, you will notice that thoughts appear like sounds in the forest, arising, fading, shifting, and you will learn to observe them without becoming tangled in them. He rises once more, his robe brushing softly against the grass. You follow him, the forest unfurling around you like a living breath. The path ahead curves away from the stream and into a quieter, more shadowed part of the woods. The air grows still. The sounds soften. This, the Buddha says as he steps forward, is where we begin listening to the mind itself. And with that, you walk with him into chapter 23, where the inner landscape of thoughts begins to reveal itself with the same gentle clarity as the forest's song. The forest grows quieter as you and the Buddha walk deeper into the shaded grove, where the canopy thickens and sunlight becomes a soft, scattered glow. The world here feels suspended, still, almost weightless, as though the air itself has paused to allow space for something delicate to unfold. The Buddha slows his pace, then stops beside a ring of smooth stones encircling a flat patch of moss. He gestures for you to sit with him, and the moment you settle onto the soft ground, a gentle hush wraps around you like a warm blanket. The Buddha closes his eyes for a moment, letting the silence deepen naturally. When he opens them again, his voice carries the calm of someone who has watched countless sunrises in perfect stillness. Now, he says, we listen inwardly. Your breath softens as you turn your attention within. At first, the mind feels busy, waves of thought moving across your awareness without clear direction. Worries, memories, half-formed images, fragments of sounds. The Buddha watches your expression gently. Thoughts arise, he says, because that is their nature. They are not enemies. They are movements. He lifts his gaze toward the sky, visible through gaps in the canopy. Imagine your mind is like the open sky, he says softly, and your thoughts are simply clouds drifting across it. You look up. Through the trees, you can see faint clouds drifting lazily overhead, changing shape, shifting direction, appearing and disappearing without effort. Something in your chest loosens. The Buddha continues, thoughts pass when you stop grasping at them. You need not chase them, fix them, or fear them. You need only watch. You close your eyes again. A thought appears, something faintly stressful, something unfinished. Normally, this would trigger tension in your body, a tightening of the breath. But here, guided by the Buddha's calm presence, you watch it instead. You watch it rise, stay for a moment, then dissolve into the space of awareness. The Buddha nods softly. Yes, he says, let it drift. Another thought emerges, this one pleasant, warm, comforting. You feel the urge to hold on to it, to keep it from fading. The Buddha notices the shift in your breath. That one too, he says gently. Let it drift. Slowly, you begin to understand. You are not the thought. You are the sky in which thoughts appear. This realization opens something spacious inside you. You begin to observe each thought as if from a distance, not pushing it away, not pulling it close, simply allowing it to float freely. A memory passes through like a soft cloud, then a worry, then a stray sound the mind echoes from earlier in the day. Each one moves with the same gentle impermanence. The Buddha's voice is warm, steady. When you no longer cling, the mind becomes clear. When you do not judge, the heart becomes peaceful. His eyes reflect the soft light filtering through the leaves. This is the beginning of freedom, seeing thoughts as transient, not as identity. You feel the truth of that resonate. For so long, thoughts have felt personal, heavy, defining. But now, sitting in the quiet of the forest, guided by the Buddha's calm, they feel lighter, like mist rising from a warm river. The Buddha shifts slightly, resting his hands in his lap. Most suffering, he says, comes from believing you are your thoughts. But thoughts are only visitors. You are the host. You may watch them come and go without losing yourself in any of them. You breathe deeply, letting the air fill your chest with slow ease. The space inside your awareness feels larger now, like a horizon expanding after a storm. Even the thoughts that used to trigger discomfort seem softer when viewed from this perspective. The Buddha continues, when clouds drift across the sky is not burdened. It does not cling to the shape of the cloud. It remains open, spacious, unchanging in its nature. He looks at you with a serene smile. Your true nature is like that sky. Something in your body relaxes, a deep, soothing release you didn't realize you were holding. The forest around you seems brighter, as if responding to your inner shift. The Buddha rises slowly, his robes brushing the moss with a whisper. When you see thoughts clearly, he says, you begin to see beyond them. You begin to see the one who is watching. You stand as well, feeling both grounded and lighter. The Buddha steps forward along a narrow trail shaded by arching branches. Come, he says gently. Now that you have seen thoughts as clouds, you are ready to explore the deeper illusion, the illusion of identity itself. With a steady breath and a clear mind, you follow him into chapter 24, where the layers of self begin to unfold like mist lifting from the morning sky. The path curves gently beneath your feet as you follow the Buddha deeper into the quiet grove. The air grows cooler, carrying hints of water and fresh leaves, as if the forest knows you are stepping into a subtler truth. Sunlight filters through in thin, shifting patterns, painting the ground with soft gold. The Buddha walks with calm certainty, the kind of ease that comes from understanding something most people have spent their whole lives overlooking. He stops near a stream that winds softly through the trees. The water glides over stones with a peaceful rhythm, never the same, never still. The Buddha sits beside it and gestures for you to join him. You settle into the moss-covered earth, feeling its softness cradle your weight. For a moment, he watches the water silently, waiting for your breath to slow and your awareness to settle. Then he speaks. Just as this river flows, he says gently, so too does everything you call I. His words ripple through your mind. You follow his gaze to the water, how it twists, how it shifts, how no drop remains the same from one moment to the next. The river appears continuous, he continues, but it is made only of movement, of change. The shape remains, but the water does not. You begin to see what he means. The Buddha lifts a small branch from the ground and dips it lightly into the stream. Water curls around it, moving past without effort. Your thoughts, your feelings, your body, each one changes every moment. He draws the branch back and sets it aside. Yet you cling to the idea that there is an unchanging I, solid and separate. You sit quietly, letting his words sink deeper. Memories flash through you, versions of yourself you once were, roles you played, ways you once thought you would always be. People you've been without realizing you were becoming someone new. The Buddha seems to feel this shift. Identity, he says softly, is a story the mind tells, a story made of memories, labels, expectations. But stories are not truth. They are reflections, temporary, shifting like wind in the grass. He invites you to place your hand on your chest. You feel your heartbeat, steady, alive, yet always changing. Even this, he says, is different from breath to breath. You inhale, noticing subtle differences. Your body replaces its cells, your feelings rise and fall, your thoughts appear and vanish. His gaze turns warm. Where, then, is the unchanging I? You search inward, not frantically, but curiously, and what you find is something spacious. A sense of awareness that watches everything without being any of the things it observes. The Buddha notices your breath deepen. You are not your thoughts, he says. You are the awareness that sees them. You are not your emotions. You are the space in which they arise and fade. He gestures to the stream. The river is not the water. The river is the flowing. A gentle warmth spreads through your chest as you begin to sense this truth, not as an idea, but as a quiet recognition. The Buddha smiles softly. When you stop clinging to identity, you become free to change, free to grow, free to meet each moment as it is, without carrying the weight of who you believe you must be. His words feel like a small lantern being lit inside your chest. Imagine, he continues, trying to hold the wind. A breeze moves through the trees, lifting a few leaves into a slow dance. You cannot grasp it. It has no edge, no center, no fixed shape. He looks back at you, yet it is real. It moves, it touches everything. You feel the breeze against your skin, cool, gentle, impossible to define. That, he says, is closer to your true nature. He lets silence deepen between you, giving the truth space to settle. The stream continues its quiet song, a perfect reminder of how natural it is for things to move, to shift, to transform. When you let go of the idea of a fixed self, he says, you stop struggling against life's changes. You flow with them, the way the river flows around stone. His voice softens. Suffering loosens its grip when identity loosens. You breathe slowly, feeling the edges of your old self soften, becoming less rigid, more open. A sense of freedom rises gently inside you, not dramatic, but warm, like early sunlight spreading through a quiet room. The Buddha rises from the moss and begins walking along the stream. You stand and follow, steps lighter than before. Once you see that you are not separate, he says, you begin to feel the truth of connection, of interbeing. of the way every life touches every other. Ahead, the forest opens slightly, revealing a soft gathering of trees woven together by vines and shared roots. The Buddha's eyes brighten. "Come," he says warmly. "Now that the illusion of separation has softened, you are ready to understand the truth of connection that holds all beings together." And with a calm heart and an open mind, you walk with him into chapter 25, where the deep interconnection of all things begins to reveal itself like sunlight breaking through the canopy. The grove opens into a wide, sun-drenched clearing where the trees seem to lean toward one another, their branches weaving a natural canopy overhead. Shafts of warm light spill through the leaves, illuminating gentle swirls of pollen, drifting like golden dust in the air. The Buddha steps forward into the glow, and you walk beside him, feeling the quiet harmony of this place settle into your breath. The ground beneath your feet is soft, the earth springy with life. Each step seems to echo a truth you haven't yet understood, but feel you're approaching. The Buddha pauses near a tall tree whose roots wrap through the earth in thick, twisting ribbons. He kneels down and places his hand gently upon one of them. "This tree," he says softly, "is not alive by itself." His voice merges effortlessly with the forest's quiet rhythm. It breathes because the soil holds it. The soil is nourished by rain. The rain is carried by clouds. The clouds are carried by wind. The wind is shaped by the sun, and the sun rises because of forces far beyond this world. He lifts his gaze to the canopy above. In this way, a single tree is the whole universe in a different shape. You let your eyes wander through the clearing. Sunlight touches leaves. Leaves feed roots. Roots feed the earth. The earth feeds creatures you cannot even see. Even the air that fills your lungs has passed through the breath of countless beings, animals, plants, oceans, time itself. You begin to feel something quiet but powerful, that nothing in your life has ever been truly separate. The Buddha rises, brushing earth from his hand. "When the mind believes it is alone," he continues, "suffering grows easily. Isolation breeds fear. But when you understand your place in the great web of life, the heart softens. It opens." He gestures for you to walk with him along a gentle stream that winds from one end of the clearing to the other. You walk beside him, listening to the soft splashing of the current as it glides around stones. He stops and touches the water lightly. "This stream," he says, "has touched mountains, clouds, and countless living beings before reaching this place. Every drop has lived 1,000 lives." You kneel, watching the water rush past your fingers. The coolness is invigorating, alive. Just as the stream flows, the Buddha says, so do your actions. Every word you speak, every gesture, every choice. Each one touches lives you may never meet. Your kindness moves outward, carried by others. Your anger does the same. His words ripple through you like the water itself. You think of the times you've been gentle without knowing the impact. You think of the times you've been sharp or hurried, unaware of the ripples those moments created. You feel a sense of responsibility, but not a heavy one. More like a tender awareness, a reminder that your presence matters beyond what you can see. The Buddha motions toward a tangle of vines climbing a nearby tree. The vines cling tightly, weaving through the branches. Birds flit in and out, carrying small pieces of twine to build their nests. Connection is everywhere, he says. See how each depends on the other. The vine needs the tree for support. The tree benefits from the vine's shade. Birds use both to create their home. He turns to face you fully. Even your thoughts arise through connection. Your language was taught by others. Your fears were shaped by past experiences. Your kindness was nurtured by those who showed it to you. Nothing about you exists in isolation. Your breath deepens as this truth settles into your heart, gentle but certain. Suddenly, the world feels larger, yet more intimate, like stepping into a vast room and realizing everything inside it is somehow familiar. The Buddha smiles when he sees your posture relax. When you understand this, he says, compassion becomes easier, gratitude becomes natural, and life becomes lighter. You walk with him to the center of the clearing. A soft breeze stirs the grass around you, and the air glows with drifting motes of sunlight. Connection, he says, is not an idea. It is a lived experience. It is felt in the breath, in the body, in the quiet moments when the heart opens without effort. You close your eyes briefly, sensing the world around you, the hum of insects, the comfort of the earth beneath you, the faint warmth of sunlight across your skin. Everything touches you. Everything supports you. Everything belongs to everything else. When you open your eyes, the Buddha is watching you with gentle understanding. Now that you feel the truth of connection, he says, your heart is ready to awaken something precious. Gratitude, not as a duty, but as a natural response to this interconnected life. He turns toward a path leading out of the clearing, where the light softens into a peaceful golden glow. You follow him, your steps steady, your heart warm with the sense of belonging that has quietly bloomed within you. And as the forest opens to a new landscape ahead, you continue with the Buddha into where gratitude becomes a living, breathing part of your journey. The path ahead glows with a soft, golden warmth as you and the Buddha leave the clearing behind. The forest opens into a wide stretch of gentle hills where sunlight drapes itself across the landscape like a warm blanket laid lovingly over the earth. The air feels different here, lighter, sweeter, as though infused with something ancient and kind. You inhale deeply, and the breath feels nourishing in a way you haven't noticed before. The Buddha walks peacefully beside you, hands resting lightly at his sides, his gaze calm and steady. After a few quiet steps, he pauses and turns to face you, the sunlight catching the edges of his silhouette. Gratitude, he says softly, is the heart's way of remembering that nothing is owed and everything is a gift. His voice carries warmth that seems to settle into your chest. When you live with gratitude, each moment becomes enough. You look around at the hills, at the slow dance of the tall grass swaying in the breeze, at the small birds hopping from branch to branch as if welcoming you deeper into their world. You feel the earth supporting your feet, the firmness, the steadiness, the quiet strength of the ground beneath you, and you begin to sense the truth of the Buddha's words, that so much of life has been quietly offering you its presence without ever asking for recognition. He gestures toward a nearby tree whose branches arc gracefully overhead. Even the air you breathe, he says, is a gift, a bridge between you and every living thing. Inhale, and the world enters you. Exhale, and you return yourself to the world. You follow his guidance, breathing slowly, deeply. The breath feels like a gentle exchange, a steady rhythm of receiving and giving, like the tide brushing the shore. The Buddha begins walking again, and you match his pace. Gratitude softens the heart, he continues. It loosens the tightness created by wanting and worrying. It reminds you that you already have more than enough. His words settle into you like warm sunlight. As you continue along the path, you begin to notice things you might have overlooked before. The intricate weave of shadows on the ground, the way tiny insects move through their small worlds with purpose, the distant hum of wind brushing through the tops of the trees. Each detail feels like a quiet invitation to appreciate the moment. The Buddha stops near a small rise in the hill and sits on a smooth, sunlit stone. You sit beside him, feeling the warmth of the rock beneath you. Gratitude, he says, is not only for pleasant moments, it is also for difficult ones, for they teach you resilience, patience, and compassion. His eyes meet yours. Every experience, joyful or painful, shapes your path. You think back to your own journey, the struggles you faced, the times you weren't sure you would find your way. You feel a soft ache, but it is not painful. It is something tender, something true. The Buddha places a hand over his heart. Be grateful, he says, for the strength you found in yourself, for the wisdom you gained, for the moments you kept going, even when you did not feel ready. The wind picks up slightly, carrying the scent of warm earth and distant flowers. The Buddha watches the hills stretch before you and smiles. When the heart learns gratitude, he says, it no longer clings. It no longer demands. It simply receives, softly, with openness. A deep sense of peace begins to bloom inside you, slowly at first, then with growing warmth. You begin to feel grateful, not only for the big moments of your life, but for the small ones too. The softness of morning light, the comfort of quiet breath, the simple steadiness of walking forward one step at a time. Every step, the Buddha says as he rises, is worthy of gratitude. For each step carries you, teaches you, strengthens you. He begins walking down the slope of the hill, his movements light and effortless. When you walk with gratitude, he adds, you walk with peace. You follow him, feeling your steps land more gently now, almost reverently, as though each movement honors the earth beneath you. The world feels brighter, kinder, more alive. You realize that gratitude doesn't change what happens in life, but it changes the way your heart receives life. As the two of you make your way into a valley where the light grows softer, the Buddha turns his gaze forward, toward a quiet place of deeper reflection. Now, he says, you are ready to learn the next truth. That gratitude naturally leads to acceptance. Acceptance of yourself. Acceptance of the world. acceptance of life as it flows. His voice carries a calm certainty that eases your breath. With gratitude warming your heart and the path unfolding gently beneath you, you walk beside him, where acceptance becomes the next doorway on your journey toward peace. The valley opens into a quiet riverside, where the gentle murmur of flowing water blends with the soft rustling of reeds. The Buddha steps toward the riverbank, his feet sinking slightly into the cool sand, and you follow him as the warm afternoon light stretches long reflections across the surface of the water. The river moves with effortless grace, never hurried, never resisting the stones in its path, never clinging to anything it passes. You feel the calm of this place settle around you like a soft shawl draped over your shoulders. The Buddha kneels near the water's edge and touches the surface lightly with his fingertips. Ripples move outward from his touch, widening slowly, disappearing into the wider current. This river, he says softly, accepts everything that enters it. Fallen leaves, drifting petals, storm, sunlight. It meets them all, and yet it remains itself. You sit beside him, watching the water glide around protruding rocks that jut into the current. The river does not pause to resent them. It does not push back. It simply flows around whatever appears, reshaping itself with each moment. To accept life as it is, the Buddha continues, is not to give up. It is to stop fighting what has already arrived. A breeze stirs the reeds along the bank, and their whispering sound fills the quiet. You think about the many times you resisted life, the moments you wanted things to be different, the moments you clung tightly to what was already gone. You feel a small ache under your ribs, familiar and human. The Buddha seems to sense it. He lifts a smooth, rounded stone from the riverbed and places it gently in your hand. This stone did not choose its shape, he says. It became what the river shaped it into. His voice feels like warm sunlight on your skin. Acceptance is the understanding that some things, like the past, like change, like loss, arrive whether you welcome them or not. You turn the stone in your hand. It is cool, solid, shaped by years of water passing over it. To accept, the Buddha says, is to stop holding the stone inside your heart. Those words cling to your breath. For a moment, emotion rises. Memories you've carried, hurts you've held tightly, expectations that once weighed heavy. The Buddha gestures gently toward the river. Place it in the water, he invites. You lower your hand and release the stone. It sinks with a soft plunk, disappearing beneath the rippling surface. Watching it go feels unexpectedly freeing. The Buddha's voice remains soft. When you stop resisting life, life becomes gentler. Not because it changes, but because you change. He rises and begins walking slowly along the riverbank. You follow, your steps light on the soft sand. The river widens as you walk, opening into broader, calmer water. Its surface reflects the sky in soft strokes of color, blue fading into rose as the sun leans toward the horizon. Acceptance, he says, is the peaceful resting place of the heart. It is the understanding that every moment, pleasant or painful, is part of the same unfolding. You listen to the steady rhythm of the river, the way it brushes past the shore with a soothing consistency. The Buddha stops near a bend where the water flows more gently, swirling in soft patterns. When you accept life, he says, you stop trying to force the moment into a shape it cannot take. You begin to move with life instead of against it. A quiet warmth blossoms inside you. Not joy exactly, but a deep, spacious ease. The kind that comes from no longer needing everything to be different. The kind that arises when you let things be what they are. The Buddha looks at your expression and nods slowly. Acceptance allows peace to rise, he says, just as soft land allows water to flow smoothly. The sky reflects in the widening river, a mirror of soft oranges and purples drifting across its surface. The Buddha gazes at the fading light, and when the heart rests in acceptance, he says, it becomes ready for something beautiful. Joy. Not the joy of excitement, but the joy of simply being alive. The joy that grows naturally when the mind has stopped struggling. The last of the sun glows along the riverbank, turning the water into a gently shimmering path of gold. The Buddha begins walking toward that golden stretch, his steps steady and peaceful. Come, he says warmly, you have learned to accept life as it is. Now, you are ready to discover the quiet joy that lives within every moment. With a breath that feels open and unburdened, you follow him into chapter 28, where joy reveals itself, like sunlight returning after a long night. Dusk settles gently over the river as you and the Buddha walk along the bank, the soft gold of sunset fading into early twilight. The sky shifts into delicate shades of violet and blue, and a coolness settles over the landscape. The world grows quieter, as though preparing for a softer rhythm of being. You feel the change in the air, the easing of light, the tender calm that arrives when day releases its final breath. The Buddha slows beside a patch of grass, and together you step into an open field where fireflies begin to rise like tiny lanterns awakening in the dark. He stands with his hands folded loosely, watching the first sparks of light appear around you. Joy, he says softly, is not found by searching outward. It appears when you become still enough to notice the small wonders that life has always offered. A firefly drifts past your face, glowing in a faint pulse. Bright, dim, bright again. You follow its gentle path, and a warmth blooms in your chest, subtle but unmistakable. The Buddha smiles when he sees the quiet light of recognition in your eyes. Simplicity, he continues, is the doorway through which true joy enters. He leads you toward a fallen log overlooking a meadow. You sit beside him, and from this vantage point, the fireflies appear like a drifting constellation. Their soft, yellow glows flickering in unison with the chorus of crickets rising from the grass. The moment feels impossibly gentle, as though the world has lowered its voice just for you. The Buddha speaks in a tone both warm and light. Many people spend their lives chasing happiness, believing it lies in accomplishments, possessions, or praise. But happiness that depends on conditions will fade the moment those conditions change. He lifts his gaze toward the fireflies. Joy is different. Joy is what remains when you see beauty in the simple truth of being alive. You breathe in deeply. The cool night air fills your lungs with a soft freshness, carrying scents of earth and distant blossoms. For the first time in a long while, your body feels unhurried, your breath feels spacious, your mind feels clear. Joy, the Buddha says, is always close, but it can only be felt when the heart is open. He gestures to the fireflies drifting through the field. These lights do not last, he says. They glow, then vanish, then glow again. Their beauty is in their impermanence. You watch them dance against the darkening sky, each a brief miracle of light. When you accept impermanence, he says, joy becomes easier to find because you no longer cling to moments. You simply appreciate them. A soft breeze moves through the meadow, brushing the grass into gentle waves. You close your eyes for a moment, listening to the crickets, the rustle of leaves, the faint splash of water from the river behind you. Every sound feels tender, woven into the tapestry of the night. When you open your eyes, the Buddha is watching you with quiet understanding. Joy grows, he says, when you stop measuring your life and start living it. His words settle over you like a warm blanket, dissolving the last remnants of tension in your shoulders. You take in the scene again, the fireflies drifting closer now, circling you like floating embers. The moon rising pale and soft behind the trees, the grass bending in slow rhythm with the breeze. There is nothing extraordinary happening here, and yet the moment feels complete. The Buddha rises, motioning for you to walk with him again. You step into the meadow, the fireflies swirling gently around your legs. In quiet moments like these, he says, you discover joy, not as an escape from life, but as part of it. His robe shimmers faintly under the growing moonlight as he continues. Joy is the natural companion of a peaceful mind. You continue walking until you reach the far end of the field, where a small rise overlooks the entire valley. The night has deepened, and stars begin to appear. First a few, then many, until the sky becomes a vast bowl of shimmering light. You feel the presence of the universe above you, infinite and calm. The Buddha stands beside you, his gaze lifted to the stars. When you see simplicity clearly, he says, joy arises effortlessly. And when joy arises, the heart becomes ready to embrace an even deeper truth. You turn toward him, sensing the shift. Peace, he says softly, not the peace of quiet surroundings, but the peace that lives inside you, unshaken by the changing world. The fireflies flicker at your feet. The stars shimmer overhead. Your breath moves like a tide through your chest. With a feeling of gentle anticipation blooming in your heart, you follow him into chapter 29, where the meaning of true inner peace begins to unfold beneath the vast, silent sky. Night deepens around you as you and the Buddha settle on the gentle rise overlooking the vast valley below. The stars shimmer overhead like countless lamps suspended in the sky, each one flickering with a calm that seems to resonate inside your own chest. The air has grown cool, wrapping softly around you like a tender embrace, and the grass beneath you feels warm from the day's sun, cushioning your body with quiet ease. The Buddha sits beside you, his posture straight yet relaxed, as if he is a mountain rooted in stillness. You feel yourself slowly matching his calm, your breath falling into an unhurried rhythm. He lifts his gaze toward the dark canvas above. The moon, casting a pale glow across his serene profile. Peace, he says softly, is not found in perfect circumstances. It arises when the heart no longer struggles against the moment. His voice blends into the night, as gentle as wind passing through the tall grass. When the mind releases its battles, even for a breath, peace comes naturally, like a lake settling after the wind stops. You inhale deeply, letting his words drift through you. The night feels vast yet intimate, as if the universe itself is leaning close to listen. Every sound is gentle. The whisper of grass, the distant call of a night bird, the faint pulse of water from the river you left behind. Nothing pushes, nothing demands. Everything simply exists in its quiet place. The Buddha notices the softening in your expression and nods. True peace, he continues, is not the silence of the world around you, but the stillness within you. He places a hand lightly over his heart. Even in noisy places, even in difficult times, the heart can remain steady when it knows how to rest. You close your eyes, feeling the night settle into your body. Thoughts drift through your mind, but they move slowly now, like leaves carried by a gentle breeze. You don't chase them. You don't resist them. You simply watch them pass, and in the space between one thought and the next, a deep quiet begins to bloom. The Buddha speaks again, his voice a steady whisper in the dark. Let each breath guide you inward. Let your body soften. Let your mind unclench. You follow his guidance, inhaling the cool night air, letting your muscles relax with each exhale. It feels like layers of tension you didn't realize you were carrying begin to melt away. Shoulders loosening, spine relaxing, heartbeat slowing into an easy, comfortable rhythm. The stars overhead seem brighter now, as if reflecting the calm spreading within you. The Buddha glances upward. Do you see how the stars do not compete? He asked softly. They shine without striving. They simply exist, each in its place, offering its light to the night. His eyes return to yours. This is how peace arises when you allow yourself to be as you are, without struggle. You let your breath deepen again, and something inside you expands. A gentle warmth, a spaciousness, a quiet trust. You feel as though you are sinking into the earth and floating among the stars at the same time, held effortlessly in the embrace of silence. The Buddha closes his eyes once more. Rest, he says, not because the journey has ended, but because the heart deserves softness after so much striving. His voice feels like a lullaby carried by the breeze. Peace is not a reward. It is your natural state, uncovered when the layers of tension and fear fall away. You sit with that truth, letting it settle into you like dew settling onto grass. The world around you grows softer, the hills dipping gently into shadow, the stars shimmering above, the night alive with quiet. You feel yourself becoming part of the stillness, your breath blending with the slow rhythm of the land. After a long silence, the Buddha opens his eyes and speaks again, his tone as gentle as moonlight. Tonight, he says, you discover a peace that comes not from outside, but from within. This peace will carry you through storms, through uncertainty, through change. His gaze softens. And when you forget it, simply return to your breath, your body, your presence. peace will always return to you. You sit with him beneath the star-filled sky, the weight of the world lifting, leaving only calm clarity behind. The night feels endless, tender, and safe, as though time itself has softened. The Buddha turns his eyes toward the horizon, where the faintest hint of tomorrow rests in the darkness. Now, he says quietly, you are ready for the final teaching. How to carry this peace into your dreams, your sleep, and the quiet hours of the night. With your heart open and your mind resting in deep stillness, you rise to follow him into chapter 30, where the wisdom of peaceful rest completes your journey. The profound stillness beneath the ancient Bodhi tree seemed to intensify the quiet light of the stars. The soft blanket of peace that had enveloped the heart in the deep night was not a sudden warmth, but a steady, cool certainty. The Buddha, seated across from you, was less a figure of authority now and more a source of limitless, silent comfort. His eyes, reflective of the immense night sky, held no judgment, only perfect acceptance, a perfect upekkha after the boundless heart had fully expanded. As the final hours passed, leaving the world to its necessary rhythms of rest, the Bhagavan spoke, his voice low and rich, like the murmur of distant water. We have walked many roads together, friend. We have traced the paths of karma, scaled the mountains of wisdom, and rested in the valleys of equanimity. You have listened to the thunder of the great truths, and you have heard the whisper of the simplest yet most profound words. This journey of seeking, of outward looking for the Dhamma, has reached its necessary terminus. He gestured with his hand toward the vast, dark canopy above. The true nature of the world is like the sky, boundless and filled with light, though often obscured by the clouds of desire and the dust of attachment. The teachings I have offered, the steps of the Noble Eightfold Path, were guides for the external journey, tools to clear the clouds, to steady the gaze. But the time of external seeking is now complete, for nothing I can speak further will be more true or more essential than the quiet you feel now. The light in his eyes seemed to grow brighter, drawing your attention fully inward. The path does not end merely because the physical guide retreats, he assured you. It simply and beautifully turns inward. The journey to Nibbana is not across the countryside, but across the landscape of your own mind. Everything you need to continue lies within the depth of your own awareness. I showed you where the stream begins. Now, you must follow its current to the ocean, understanding that the only barrier you face is the self you cling to. He spoke of the practice now becoming a natural, effortless flow, of mindfulness ceasing to be an effort and becoming the very air you breathe. When you sit or stand or walk or eat, let your awareness be the ever-present guardian. This is your teacher now. The seed of peace has been planted in your heart through the cultivation of metta, karuna, mudita, and upekkha. Do not let the world uproot it, for the world is nothing more than the projection of your own mind. It is in the small, quiet moments that the great liberation is won. Carry this peace, friend, into all the spheres of your life, the Buddha urged. Carry it into the realm of your waking actions, making right livelihood and right action extensions of your boundless heart. Let not a single word leave your mouth that does not serve the well-being of all beings. And when the body demands rest, carry this peace into your very dreams. Let your sleep be a conscious dwelling in serenity. When the mind is purified, your nightly rest becomes a deep meditation, a quiet rehearsal for the ultimate tranquility. Even in the darkness, the lamp of awareness need not be extinguished. It may simply be dimmed to a gentle, steady glow, guiding you through the night's forms. He brought his hands together in a gesture of blessing, the ancient, potent transmission of goodwill. I have no material treasures to bestow, no magic formulas to whisper in the ear. My only blessing is the Dhamma itself, which is yours already and requires only your sincere effort to manifest fully. May your steps be sure and steady. May your heart remain open and undefended. May the peace you have tasted here, beneath these stars, become the very ground upon which you walk, whether awake or asleep. The journey continues within you, unceasingly, until the final goal is realized and the great yearning for existence is finally stilled. With those final words, a silence more profound than any before settled upon the grove. The Buddha closed his eyes, sinking into an imperturbable repose, his form radiating an absolute sense of final relief. The long story had found its conclusion in the teachings. And now it was your turn to begin the silent, untold chapter of practice. Following his example, you bowed low, acknowledging the immense grace of the last instruction. The ground beneath the tree felt cool and soft against your spine as you slowly settled, stretching out your tired body. The weight of the long journey, the intensity of the listening, the sheer magnitude of the truth, all melted away. You felt the earth holding you, the air nourishing you, and the starlight witnessing your final descent into rest. The echoes of his words, the journey continues within you, were the last conscious thought. The Bodhi tree's leaves sighed overhead, a lullaby of wisdom, and under the infinite, peaceful watch of the cosmos, you drifted, finally, completely, into a deep, untroubled sloth.